OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
All right, we've got a show for you this Monday morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, wherever you are this day. You're very welcome along to us. We've got a competition for you. You can win £100 thanks to Best Menswear. We'll tell you how in just a couple of minutes' time. It's probably more than likely. I'm not sure about this, but it's probably more than likely if you share the stream wherever you're watching us. And wherever you're watching us this morning, you are very welcome. I'll give you the full details of that competition in a couple of minutes' time. In the meantime, Dave McIntyre, how are you?
I'm very well.
Welcome to the studio. What's
Thank
rare
you.
is wonderful.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
A little bird, i.e. Tommy, told me that you were musing about whether or not this Liverpool team might be one of the greatest Premier League teams of all time. Or since the Premier League era.
Well, look, in order for you to be in this debate in an official capacity, you have to have won a Premier League title.
You're shooing them in. It's done. After the weekend, it's a done deal.
No, I'm prefacing the discussion by acknowledging that fact.
Okay.
And they will certainly not be considered one of the great Premier League teams of all time if they manage to screw things up from this juncture.
This would be the greatest choke. Every year we're like, would this be the greatest choke? This would be the greatest choke.
Liverpool aren't as far clear of their opposition as Newcastle were.
Are they? Well, Newcastle
Were Newcastle 15 clear?
I thought they were 9.
Before they were beaten by Manchester United at St James's Park with that Cantona goal. Our viewers / listeners / yourself can correct me if I'm wrong of that. Liverpool's 10-point lead, I don't think, is the biggest lead a team has enjoyed at this stage of the season.
12 points. No, hang on, sorry. Go on. Sorry.
So this was obviously the 95-96 season.
Yeah.
But it would be an almighty collapse from this point.
At Christmas, they had a lead of 10 points, which stretched to 12 points.
Okay.
So
they're 2 points shy of what was the...
I mean, they're not really, right? Because we don't think Leicester City are going to win the league, do we?
Yeah, they were up against a Manchester United team that had won 2 of the previous 3 Premier League titles and then would win that season and win another 2 more after that, let alone what they managed to do in later Ferguson years. They were up against one of the great teams. Liverpool have no opposition.
Well, Manchester City are a really good team.
Not our really good team. They were.
Yeah.
In Premier League terms, they were. Right now, they are not.
So they were record-breaking last season.
Yeah, and the season before, they were one of them. Like, when I'm talking about the great Premier League teams, the Pep Guardiola side of the last 2 seasons are in the debate. I'm just wondering, is it too early to add Liverpool to the debate? Up there with the Mourinho-Chelsea side that broke 100 points and went 40 games unbeaten. The 2 Manchester United teams that won 3 in a row from 99, 2000, 2001, 7, 8 and 9. There are no other teams really. It's just those 3 and the Arsenal Invincibles. So it's those 4. Liverpool are 34 games unbeaten. They're on an astonishingly long home record unbeaten. And they only lost once all last season.
Didn't the Invincibles draw a lot of games?
Well, they did, but that's not something you could ever hold against that Arsenal team.
Well,
they went 49 games unbeaten.
We are nitpicking here because we're trying to decide which of these teams is the best, right? Or that's the conversation you're having, right?
Yeah.
So you got to pick some nits in the Invincibles. An amazing record, obviously so difficult to do.
And only won 1 title in a row. They'd obviously won the Premier League in 2002 as well.
Yeah.
But the Invincibles team they never won 2 in a row, which I think you hold against them.
Yeah. I think I'd like to see their league table at the end of the season. What would Liverpool have to do apart from win the league?
To officially be in this debate, they have to win a league. Okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now,
and even then,
certainly they will do so.
Do they get super bonus points for finishing so well last year and being so good?
Once the league title is in the bank, it definitely adds to the argument.
Well, then Arsenal's previous title would also add to their argument, so they're kind of back in, right?
Well, I'm not eliminating Arsenal. I'm just saying that if you were looking for cons when it comes to the Arsenal team, the fact that they never won more than 1, they never managed to back it up. Like that Mourinho-Chelsea team at least won 2 in a row. City won 2 in a row and held off the greatest title charge in the history of the Premier League in what Liverpool did last season.
Which weirdly didn't really feel that invigorating because you never thought that Manchester City were going to crumble, which is a sign of their greatness, I suppose.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
And also the weakness of the rest of the league.
But I think you add what Liverpool did last season to what they're doing this season. And look, if you and I were to sit down in 12 weeks' time and have this exact same argument, it wouldn't really be an argument as to whether they're one of the great Premier League teams.
Because you think that they will be crowned at that stage?
Well, they play Manchester City on the 4th of April at the Etihad Stadium. That is the day that, if they don't lose between here and then they will emulate the Arsenal team, 49 games unbeaten.
Stephen's Day, obviously, they've got Leicester City.
Yeah,
That would
away from
officially
home.
end the title if they win that.
Yeah, assuming the two teams win their next game in between, and say the gap is still 10 points. If it's 13 points, even Liverpool fans will tell you that the league title race is over. I understand completely why Liverpool supporters are so reluctant to tell you that it's going to be their year. You would be in that position, wouldn't you? I remember being a Dubs fan in 2011, and even when Stephen Cluxon had kicked that free, and you knew there was no time left, it had been a long, long time since 1995. You're still thinking, no, something's going to happen that will take this moment away from us. Nothing will happen to Liverpool that can possibly take that moment away from them. My only fear from Liverpool's point of view is that if the lead came down to 8 or 7...
It would need to be 3 before they...
Well, at what stage does the unbearable pressure kick in?
Did it not kick in 2 years ago, 3 years ago, before Jurgen Klopp arrived? It's not pressure now as much as a celebration of the great team that they've built, because this group have already won a Champions League and are still title contenders. The Champions League win didn't come out of nowhere. It came on the back of steady stuff that was layered on achievement after achievement and brilliance after brilliance.
It did, but there was no real pressure on them in the Champions League. They were not Champions League contenders in the eyes of most going into those campaigns, either last season or the season before, even though they'd lost the final against Real Madrid and a game that they should have won. They would have been on the list of pretenders to the throne going into last season's Champions League. But would you have had them in your top 2 or 3?
I think they were pretty close to...
They were thereabouts, but like it wasn't...
Well, we were still overvaluing Real Madrid and, to a lesser extent, Barcelona. But after that, Man City...
Yeah, Bayern, PSG as well. I would have had Man City ahead of them going into last season's competition, given how brilliant City were in the Premier League last season. But I don't think there was that much pressure associated with Liverpool going into these huge Champions League games. Like, they lost 3-0 at Barcelona in the semi-final first leg last season. So there was no pressure on them going into their second leg, semi-final second leg. This is entirely different. This is 30 years of hurt, 30 years of wondering would it ever happen again. 3 or 4 times in those 30 years they've come so close. Rafa in 2009, Brendan Rodgers 2014, last season.
There's no pressure now because everybody keeps falling away. Like if
obviously lessens the pressure to the point where it looks like there's absolutely no opposition, and nobody expects Leicester to be able to keep up the pace.
And they haven't been.
And they dropped 2 points at the weekend, and I would think now that it's back to double digits, like that is the end of it, which is a real pity.
Yeah, it would be the greatest league of all time. If
it would. Now, we've said that many times over the years. You take the top side out of it, you could throw a blanket over the rest of the teams. But I also wonder, and I'd be interested to get Liverpool's fans take on this. They won't care how they win it or when they win it, because they haven't won it in so long. And if you told Liverpool fans after Alan Hansen's lifting that Premier League title, or the league title, the old First Division title, which is now held aloft by the Championship winners, isn't it, that you'd have to wait 30 years for this to happen again, they will not care how this comes to pass. But would it take some of the lustre off it if things continue as they are now and their opposition just continues to fall away?
No.
If it's over at the end of March.
No, that'll be
and in a game they're not even playing.
That's even better. They get 3 months to
Leicester have drawn with
celebrate it.
Watford at Vicarage Road at the end of March. And
happiest of happy times. No physical exertion required. The party that night is perfect. At that point, if they haven't lost a game, then the pressure will be to join the Invincibles as a Premier League team who went through the season unbeaten.
It will also take some of the pressure away when it comes to them doubling up in their Champions League if they're still in the competition, because suddenly they won't have to worry about the Premier League games as much. Well, but you're right, if they do get to the point where they're crowned champions and they're still unbeaten, there will be a little bit of added pressure in trying to remain unbeaten and do what Arsenal did in 2004. But it's I do believe they are one of the great Premier League teams. They have overtaken Newcastle now as the greatest Premier League team never to win a Premier League title.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, there were good Villa teams at the time, but not as good as that Newcastle team.
Come on! Well, one good Villa team that went close in '93.
I mean, Newcastle finished third, right?
In 96.
Yeah, did
they finish third?
I think they finished. I think they.
God.
Isn't the joke the only horse ever to finish third in a 2-horse race? Right. I could be corrected on that. There's probably some other teams who managed that.
But is that a fair thing to say, that they are the greatest Premier League side never to win a title?
Suarez Rodgers' team?
No, this team is better than that. Given what they've achieved in Europe, and given that it's not just this is not a one season.
They're not
thing.
a Rafa Torres team.
Yeah, they were very close in 2009, but theirs was a brilliant charge made late, and they would have come so close. You'll remember that day when Federico Macheda got the winner for United against Villa. United were on a bad run at the time. I think they'd lost at least 2 in a row, if not 3 Premier League games in a row, one of which was the hiding they got at Old Trafford against Liverpool when the 2 full-backs scored. Aurelio, the Brazilian full-back, and De Sena. Did he score that day as well?
Maybe, yeah. Wow.
But that was Liverpool charging late, and Torres was on fire. But this is the greatest Liverpool team of the Premier League era, and as things stand right now, 34 games unbeaten, added to the book of work that they delivered last season in going so close to winning it and only losing 1 game. They're definitely the greatest Premier League side not to have won a title, and that's going to change in the next 16 weeks.
Emma, a resident Liverpool fan in the box, says Salah has now scored more goals than Torres and Suarez have for Liverpool in less games.
And he's having a really bad season, apparently.
I'm told. It was like, it just needs to keep going here with the bad form. It's like, when you start to backheel them in, things are going all right for you. Here's what's coming up on the show. Very busy show. It is Christmas time, so we're going to help you with some Christmas gifts a little bit later on. Kenny Cunningham at 8 o'clock to look back on the weekend's football. If you have anything you want to ask him about, you can tweet the show using the hashtag OTBAM. Katie Taylor up against the Galway Hurlers is the second last quarter-final, I think, of where we stand in the last quarter-final. So for a place in the semis, it's Katie Taylor against the Galway Hurling All-Ireland. We didn't manage to distill that down to one single thing. Sports news coming your way at 8:45. Rugby with Alan Quinlan around about 9:05 after a fairly interesting weekend on and off the pitch, or on the pitch and on the sidelines in the Heineken Champions Cup at the weekend. Gary O'Hannon's going to be in with us a little bit later on to talk us through a Christmas gift guide. Are you ready for Christmas? Are you using your trip into town today to...
I do have to assess where I am once I get off air here with you. And I know we've got another little bit of work to do once we're finished as well. But once I get a little bit of freedom in the early afternoon, I'll have to sit down and figure out exactly where I am. I think in terms of the adults that I have to get for, I'm pretty much there. But there are 1 or 2 other bits and pieces that need to be sorted out.
Okay, well, Best Menswear have the men in your life sorted this Christmas. Beautiful gifts from top brands like Hugo Boss, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein and Marco Capelli, with gifts from as little as €20. They'll take the pain out of Christmas shopping for you all this week on OTBM with thanks to Best Menswear. We've got prizes every morning to help you in the build-up to Christmas. You can win a €100 gift voucher to Best Menswear on OTBAM this morning. Just share this morning's show, and the best comment on the weekend sport will win. And make sure you either tweet us or share the stream wherever you're watching it. And as I said, Gary Hannon's going to be in to help us pick a present for the foodie in your life. Papers now.
OTB AM.
The front page of the Irish Times sports section this morning is De Bruyne produces a masterclass. Gifted Manchester City midfielder a joy to watch as Arsenal are reduced to helpless onlookers. Wounded Munster in winner bus mode for trek to Paris. Unseemly fracas during Saracens' clash to be investigated by EPCR. So those sensitive souls at Saracens didn't like what was said. Here's the description. Moving into the 50th minute of the game, prior to a Saracens line-out, it's understood that Dr. Kearns took objection to Jamie George kicking the ball at Niall Scannell, and at some point in a lengthy face-to-face exchange told him to F off, you fat P. It's P... exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. So you can kind of work out what that is. I mean, it could be penis. I don't think it is. It could be prick. Seems more likely.
I would say that's where I would have my money.
Yeah. What else is like 5 letters?
When did we get to the point where
P?
prick had to be...
I don't know. I mean,
filled
come
in with
on.
exclamation marks. At what point did we pass the...
And what kind of sensitive soul is Jamie George that like this? But the worst part was Mark McCall coming out and saying, "Oh, he said something very unfair." What was the exact phrase that they use?
There's more to it than...
Something pretty bad was said to Jamie.
And when I heard that initially, before we'd found out exactly what the detail was, I'd assumed something had been said maybe about a member of his family, or maybe there's a backstory with Jamie George in terms of a personal loss of some description. Because there have been some pretty filthy things said to people in the past on sports fields.
But it turns out none of that is even alleged. Exactly.
Which I just think Saracens were... I think Saracens would have been easily offended after what had gone over the last couple of weeks, because they are obviously in a position where they're able to develop a siege mentality over what's gone on off the field.
Yeah.
And
they cheated, they got called on their cheating, and now they're like, oh, everybody's out to get us because we were cheating. Well, yes, we are out to get you because you were cheating because you were cheating.
But that's exactly what you would do if you were Saracens or any professional outfit in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I might not be so sensitive that I'd be trying to get this doctor in trouble for something that, like, Jamie George kicks the ball at Niall Scannell while he's being treated by a doctor. That's the type of stuff that's supposed to get you in trouble.
But ultimately, when this is investigated and if there are any repercussions, I don't think the doctor is going to be the person that will be banned or suspended or punished in any way. I obviously commentate the rugby a lot, and the referees' mics where they are nowadays, we pick up foul language all the time. There are some terrible things said on the rugby field with teammates speaking to each other, opposition players having a go at each other. And
I thought that rugby, they're scared of the audio because the referees are mic'd up, so there was less of it. It's
more expletives rather than insults that have been traded.
Yeah. Well, there was definitely an Ireland-England international one time where the ref mic picked up Steve Thompson being called also fat, but not the P word, the C word, by his opposite number at the time. And I mean, you know, I'm fairly sure that most Irish rugby fans were like, yeah, go on. Yeah, this stuff's not serious.
No, this is the fact that a melee broke out is the serious part of it. That's why it needs to be investigated, because the EPCR absolutely have to look at this situation. You can't just allow a row to spill over into the stand or very close to where supporters were sitting and not do anything about it. That's the issue.
Yeah.
The issue isn't that somebody was called an FP in the midst of a game.
No.
That is not the problem here.
No.
But Saracens obviously would have felt, not only because of the stuff that went on off the field, but a lot of stuff that was said in the build-up to the first Munster game where they were, you know, displaying disdain for the integrity of the Heineken Champions Cup by the 15 that they picked. Even though as I looked at the 15, I thought at least 7 would be starting in a Champions Cup final were it to be this afternoon.
Yeah, and the thing is, 3 or 4 other players go off the boil. So there's probably only 3 or 4 who were actually away from a full choice team. And then there's a picture of Michael Conlon in the back there after his win against Vladimir Nikitin. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Tyson Fury has changed his coach. Picture of Andy Lee when he was making the announcements, but it's not actually Andy Lee who's going to be his coach. At least we don't think so yet.
Yeah, we better ask him. I'm up next, yeah. The Examiner Sport, Kevin De Bruyne humbles Arsenal as Ljungberg urges quick managerial decision. You've seen these goals, have you?
No.
The first one is an absolutely wondrous strike. You could call it on the volley. The ball is just on the rise as it arrives to him. A really good cutback to the edge of the area. Smashed into the roof of the net with perfect control and precision by his right foot. And then the third goal of the game is also Kevin De Bruyne as he curls the ball from outside the area into the bottom corner with his left foot. It's astonishing. He looks equally as adept on both feet, which all top Premier League pros should be. The other major one that we see out of the stories there is Peter Jackson saying ruthless Leinster reach hitherto untouched peaks, which I'm sure will come up with Alan Quinlan later in the morning when we have him in studio. But myself and Quinny were commentating on the game on Saturday afternoon, and Leinster are imperious, although their opposition leaves a little to be desired, I would think, in this pool. The
Irish Daily Mail here is Brawl Probe. Munster face sanction over Sarri scrap. Munster are facing a possible sanction in the coming days, with European rugby chiefs launching an investigation into the events surrounding a mass brawl during the game. And then first cut not deep as Clare edge tip. Mark McCarthy takes a sideline cut for Tipperary in Neenah yesterday, and not ideal hurling conditions. You can see the groundsmen have done their best to get the pitch ready, but hurling in December is tricky, and you know, not a lot of growth in that grass. Freddie proud of Gunners despite thrashing, so Freddie Ljungberg has the air of a man who knows that the end is nigh. Arseblog was on saying that he hears an announcement is imminent in the next 24 hours. It could be anything. It could be the new manager, or it could be Freddie staying until the end of the season, but you surely, if you're
it's unlikely to be the latter, isn't it?
You really hope it's not, right?
Yeah.
Like he can go back and continue to learn his craft, I believe is the phrase.
Well, if the guy that they want is available, he has to be in today. But we shall see on that one. The back of the Irish Daily Star. Santa's little helper. The FAI will ask Sports Minister Shane Ross for government financial support at a Leinster House summit this evening. Brian O'Driscoll has blasted Saturday's ugly brawl between Munster and Saracens, saying we don't want that in our game, and all gone wrong Lundberg's hopes of becoming the permanent Arsenal boss were left in tatters following a festive farce at the Emirates yesterday.
Farce. Yeah, okay, that's that. Fred, get a move on with new bosses. The back page of the Irish Sun. That's Freddie Lundberg telling his Arsenal overlords to get a move on. And Ozil in China row, then sub tantrum, gloves are off, is the big headline there. So Mesut Ozil had something to say about the Chinese government's treatment of a Muslim population. Arsenal immediately distanced themselves from it because they don't care what goes on. They're a business and they want to make money. And the game was not shown on Chinese TV. The Man City Arsenal game was removed from Chinese state TV after Ozil's tweet. So fair play to Mesut Ozil for actually standing up for something he believes in. Not everything that Mesut Ozil does and says and supports would be something that you could row in behind, but such is the complicated way of life.
And it was interesting, Arsenal said, this is merely the personal opinion of Mesut Ozil, but we are not political as a club, despite the fact that they tell their players to wear, or they would like their players to wear the poppy on Remembrance Sunday. And they're perfectly happy to get fully behind the Rainbow campaign, as they were a week ago, as all clubs did and should have done. But to say that they're 100% apolitical isn't quite accurate. But maybe when it comes to a massive £700 million TV Premier League deal, you have to make sure that people know what side of the fence they're sitting on.
Paddy Dempsey has ditched plans to join the FAI board just 24 hours after being selected by the Schoolboys Football Association of Ireland as its nominee. The DDSL chairman, Dempsey, was the unanimous choice to replace John Early at the SFAI council meeting on Saturday. So John Early was obviously part of the board going back and had announced that he was leaving immediately over the course of the weekend. The Schoolboy Football Association had got to nominate a replacement, and they nominated this guy and from the DDSL, and he was a controversial choice, to say the least, because there were questions asked about a statement that the DDSL issued backing Delaney. Whenever all those statements came out from Schoolboy and grassroots backing Delaney, and as soon as those questions were made public, Dempsey withdrew his candidacy. So we'll see who the Schoolboys send forward for the new board.
Now, the back of the Times of London, Ozil attack sparked China retaliation. We've just mentioned that. And a picture of Duncan Ferguson in his shirt and tie at a windswept, freezing, icy Old Trafford yesterday afternoon.
Did he get the job? I mean, he's doing all right. It's a terrible decision, but it'll be brilliant.
Well, him getting the job until the end of the season wouldn't be,
ridiculous.
One that would leave me awestruck. That's plausible. If he continues to draw/win games against better teams, like he's gone to Old Trafford and they've hosted Chelsea, and they've emerged unbeaten from those two games. It's a good start.
The alternative is he should just retire and go, look at my record, lads.
He's obviously got no managerial experience, but neither did Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in terms of a really big club. I know he had times at Molde and
Cardiff.
Shorter time at Cardiff City, but if he has a similar run, and they go on a similar run to that which United went on when Solskjaer took the reins, who knows? He could be installed as the permanent manager with a 3-year deal by the end of March.
We'll play you some Seamus Coleman a little bit later on. He's been talking after the game yesterday about what he thinks of it. Dire Gunners labour under delusions of adequacy. Eamon Sweeney is telling us that Jeremy Corbyn and Arsenal are the same. Munster need domestic title days to rid them of European losing days. DAYS and DAZE is the headline on David Kelly's piece.
Back of the Guardian, decision time for Arsenal. Lundberg calls for clarity on his role after De Bruyne masterclass. And on the front of the Guardian is Ben Stokes holding aloft the BBC Sports Personality of the Year award. There was a time when this was a huge deal, and we all used to sit in on that Sunday night, and it was in a much smaller studio, and it was being hosted by Steve Ryder, and I loved every minute of it. And then something changed.
What happened? They lost rights. Is that the issue?
I don't know.
Everybody's criticising that, and I can't tell if everybody's criticising it because it's easy, or...
I don't know if it's rights related. It's just that the sports broadcasting landscape is very saturated now. Also, they went big time. They brought it into was it the O2 Arena they brought it into?
Yeah.
Is that where it was last night? I'm not sure. And it just wasn't as intimate as it used to be.
So it's a live audience?
Yeah, it was always a live audience, but now It's this huge deal. It's like an arena now.
Right.
And I also think it is back in the day when we were watching it in the 80s, you couldn't, if somebody mentioned an event that took place earlier in the year, God, you remember when someone won the Masters or whoever it was, you could just go on YouTube and say, and you could watch the last 10 minutes of you couldn't do that back then either. You wouldn't hear or see anything about it if it happened in April all the way through to the Sports Personality Awards. But interesting, I was in a taxi on Friday evening and I got into the taxi and I asked the driver where he was from and he said, I'm from Pakistan, and immediately he said to me, "Are you a cricket fan?" And I said, "Actually, I would. I do enjoy watching a bit of cricket." And the conversation meandered, and I mentioned Ben Stokes, and he, for a self-proclaimed cricket fan, he hadn't even seen or heard of what Ben Stokes had done in the Ashes during the summer.
Because it didn't matter.
Well, how can you be a cricket fan and not know?
Maybe
Like
the Ashes.
that arguably is the greatest sporting moment of 2019.
I mean, yeah. The Ashes is one of those weird things you kind of have to care
No, I'm
about.
talking. This is not the thing that you and Tommy and the lads have made up about the great sporting moments of the decade.
No, Dave. You're off the Christmas card list.
I'm talking about actual moments. Do you know, when something happens in a moment.
A specific second.
Yes, when he scores those winning runs to win that test in the most unlikely fashion.
Was the World Cup not even more dramatic?
You could, if you're a cricket fan, definitely you could make an argument. I think, and he obviously was involved in that super over as well against New Zealand in that World Cup final. But having sat down for the whole afternoon and watched that innings unfold, and then that for him to hit those winning runs, it was absolutely ridiculous. But the fact that this cricket fan from Pakistan, who has devoted his life to watching the Pakistani one-day teams and Test cricket teams, hadn't even seen it. He swore, he promised, as I left his taxi, that the first thing he did when he got home was going to go onto YouTube.
Or maybe he doesn't care about the
watch it
Ashes,
unfold.
you know? It's like, I can see if you're from Pakistan, you don't care that much about England and Australia and their weird made-up thing that they play every 18 months. Can you not?
No, not if you're a huge fan of cricket.
Well, it's like
that was the biggest single thing that was happening in the cricketing world. I've certainly kept abreast of
yeah,
matters
but I
in the
have too, because
President's
it's
Cup
been on
over
the
the
sports
weekend.
teams. It's been on the sports teams, but like, and also because Tiger Woods. But that's it. I don't care about the President's Cup.
No, I don't care about it, but
Patrick Reed.
But I would
Patrick
watch
Reed's
it.
caddy being a bit of a dick. Like,
I didn't care whether England won that Test match or not.
Yeah,
I don't care about the Ashes.
I want to just bring you this. It's from Tina Foley's weekend takeaways. Ex-Kerry star proves he can still walk the walk. You seen this? It's more than a year since Kieran Donnelly announced his inter-county retirement, and he's made a swift and easy transition into punditry, as we know. But he proved he can still do more than talk the talk after a heroic score for his club Austin Stacks in the Kerry Division 1 League final, the first club game in the kingdom to be decided by spot kicks. Austin Stacks eventually beat Rathmore 4-3 on penalties. No surprise their veteran starman clinched the winner himself before being mobbed by his teammates. The last penalty, that's not a bad way. If that's the end of the football career, it's not a bad way to go, is it?
It's incredible that these guys are still playing club football at the end of December, isn't it?
They won the club championship. I'm going to get these titles wrong. They won the club championship at the start of the year.
Yeah, which then allowed them entry into the Munster Senior Club Championship
Only
when
if
Crokes didn't win.
Exactly, only if no
The
other
other county championship.
The county championship, yeah, because obviously East Kerry won that with the Cliffords. And so that's not a bad year for Austin. You know, at the end of year thing, there'll be 2 trophies.
Yeah. Yeah, when they're getting their medals delivered to them, might as well double it up.
Didn't do themselves any favours against Nemo, though.
Front page of the Telegraph sports section. King Kev, Guardiola hails De Bruyne's extraordinary masterclass. Lundberg tells abject Arsenal to side on manager now.
If newly tanned Kevin Kilban wins Dancing on Ice, will that be the headlines, King Kev? What other Kilban headlines can there be?
I'm not sure, you put me on the spot now. I'm sure King Kev will be the go-to headline.
Yeah.
It's I heard him on 5 Live on Saturday afternoon, and they were discussing how much weight he'd lost and how svelte he looked.
He's pretty skinny.
Yeah.
He was happy to have pictures of himself with his top off.
Yeah.
That's a new thing.
That he's happy to have pictures
Oh, he's
taken
like,
with his top off.
Well, he's putting them on. If you're not following Kilban on Instagram, get over there. I presume that was him getting his fake tan done, was it?
I don't know. I looked at that picture for a couple of minutes trying to figure out exactly what the circumstances of it were, but
What?
I'm none the wiser. We better ask him to give us the detail when we're discussing it with him.
Yeah. Finally for me for now, Mirror Sport, Rough and Freddie. Brilliant De Bruyne kills off Lundberg's hopes of job as Ozil boils over for Gunners. That's him kicking, Mesut Ozil kicking his gloves away. Board nominee pulls out amid link to Delaney. And news coming that Shane Ross will meet FAI chiefs this week. Shane Ross will meet FAI bosses today after further confusion over board appointments. So that is one of the boards that just aren't working at the moment. And so more on that a little bit later on. It is bang on 8 o'clock this morning. Oh, we can watch here's the footage of, some footage from Kieran Donaghy and Austin Sachs winning the league. Oh, here we go. So Kerry Sports Hub, thanks for this. Come on, Dave, give us a bit of commentary on this.
Well, he struck it beautifully right-footed, sent the keeper the wrong way, sort of down the centre of the net. That's not the greatest penalty I've ever seen, but it was well struck. And
Keeper dives out of the way.
Net, and he's been mobbed now by his teammates on the edge of the large rectangle. It's like they've won the All-Ireland Club Championship.
County League Division 1 title, that's class. But, like, these penalty shootouts, why would anybody intervene? Why would anybody stop this happening?
No, it's great TV if it has been covered on TV. You can see what it meant to them there. I'm sure that added to the lustre of winning the game in the fashion that they did. It's a brilliant way to make sure things are decided on the day.
Yeah.
And in a fixture pile-up, in a sport where no real fixture structure is one of the biggest problems facing the organisation, keep the penalty kicks going.
Yeah, I agree.
It's great fun.
Here's the Irish news for you. Last one for now. It's Quinlan getting better with each fight, says trainer Booth. So Adam Booth, very confident in how Michael Quinlan is progressing. And there's a picture from one of the Winter League games as well above that. Right, 8 o'clock, 2 minutes past 8 for you here this morning on OTB AM. We're going to take a quick break. We're back with football from Kenny Cunningham and going to hear from Gary Breen ripping Arsenal to shreds next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. Off the ball.
Salah takes the shot. Oh, Mo Salah with one of the goals of the season. 25 yards out.
If you throw your lot in and play senior international football with somebody, that should be the end of it.
That's brilliant. Oh, my goodness me. You will not see a better try.
Who will be All-Ireland champions? Who will see their dreams turn into reality? Whose names will be etched in history forever?
OTB Live. Never miss the action right here. Every Saturday and Sunday on Off the Ball.
From music to rock out to, chill out to, and dance to. From sweater weather to workout playlists. Whatever mood you're in, Go Loud has music to match. Download the Go Loud app now or add us on your smart speaker. Go Loud. Podcasts, radio, and music to your ears. Go Loud!
This is OTB Sports Radio.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
I mean, you would think, even if you're Ozil, in a cynical way, just in a self-serving cynical way, you know what's happened to Xhaka a couple of months ago.
But on that, Joe, on that with Xhaka, and people think that they've just turned on the player, Arsenal were chasing the game. They needed to make a positive substitution, and he walked off Xhaka, and he got booed for it. Now, everyone says, and I understand that in terms of what he said, that he's found it difficult, that the horrible messages that his family have been getting, which is abhorrent. It really is. And that should have criminal proceedings if anyone's threatened his family. But take that aside, he has never, ever apologised for what he did that day in terms of swearing and telling the supporters to do one. He's just literally said an explanation as to why he did that. He feels no responsibility in terms of how he reacted, and nor did Ozil there. And this is the problem, is that they're the most self-rewarding group of players I think I've ever seen. I genuinely mean that, and they're the weakest group I've ever seen. You think about selfies when they beat Leicester, that time here, that late Danny Welbeck winner to beat them 2-1 in the season that Leicester won the league. And they thought they'd won the league. Selfies in the changing room, celebrating, jumping around, literally had the champagne out. Ended up finished 10 points behind Leicester. And this is the problem you have, is that there's a culture at Arsenal that's rotten. It is. And that's not to say they're not great guys and they're not good footballers, because they are. But as a collective, it's rotten. It really is.
As a collective, it's rotten, was Gary Breen's damning assessment of Arsenal. And that's not just Arsenal now, that's Arsenal over the last period of time. Ben Turner says, this is spot on. If you disagree, that's fine. But my word, you are deluded if you think otherwise. Club is rotten to the core. Lack of ambition from the top and desire on the pitch. Press the reset button. Richard Grant, according to the fanboys, it's not Xhaka or Ozil. It's either the coach, tactics, or they don't have the correct players around them. Superstars will always shine regardless of the situation. And the Divine Beard says, Fantastic summary of the mess at Arsenal are in. Great interview, spot on. I said it, all those players Wenger brought in his last days were shit and thought big about themselves because Wenger considered them good. I love Ozil, but let's move on and let's play the under-21s and call it a season. Is there any way back for Arsenal? Kenny Cunningham is with us this morning. Kenny, good morning to you.
Morning, lads.
Is there any way back for Arsenal from here? Are they just destined to be in irrelevance for the next half decade or decades?
Oh no, I don't think it's their destiny to be in the doldrums for the next kind of 5 to 6 years. But yeah, it kind of needs kind of fundamental change. We can talk about up in the boardroom level, etc., how that functions. But I think primarily in the short term is the appointment of a new manager at all football clubs. Really, is pointing out the obvious. It's absolutely key. You know, have to get the right man in who can immediately assess the issues within the squad, around the squad, the kind of culture that Gary spoke about. I agree with totally, but that can change, and that can change fundamentally from the manager. His kind of the type of personality that you bring in, his kind of work ethic, what he demands from the players, and in a reasonably short period of time, albeit with a number of players moving out the door and a number coming in. That can change reasonably quickly over the course of a year, 18 months, 2 years.
You can see that at various clubs where a manager comes in and has that type of impact, but there aren't that many of those managers around in world football. Carlo Ancelotti's been named, linked with this one fairly regularly. Mikel Arteta has been linked as well. With Ancelotti, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get the manager who has built teams at big clubs in the past, but I don't know if he's going to be the type of manager who's going to completely revolutionise how a club thinks about itself, given that he is not there for a 10-year period. He's not there indefinitely. He's literally there for a short period of time to try and get something done. Is that what they need, or is it actually somebody who's going to plug in and know the tea lady and know the training ground staff and get in completely invested in how the youth teams are playing, all that kind of stuff that a manager like Mikel Arteta is supposed to be?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Ancelotti, and I think he ticks quite a number of boxes in terms of like Premiership experience, and I think his man management is always something which stands out with Ancelotti. Players have worked underneath and got a great relationship with his players, a man of kind of real stature. You would have thought the type of personality, strong enough personality as well, to have those serious conversations with people further up the chain at Arsenal in terms of what needs to be done in terms of recruitment, in particular how the club functions on a boardroom level, but in particular his own experience in terms of recruitment of players. Now I know he's always operated at a very high level, which I think is a fair argument, predominantly during the course of his career. The level of footballers he was having to deal with, wasn't having to motivate too many the players on a daily basis that he had in a number of his clubs, which he's been at, the kind of the likes of AC Milan and Chelsea in particular, and his previous work. So this is slightly different what he would experience at Arsenal. But I think as long as he got the right kind of backroom staff around him, he's worked with consistently with a number of people over the years. I still do genuinely feel somebody like him of his kind of stature. He wouldn't go around shouting and screaming around the dressing room and pinning people up against the dressing room walls saying that's not good enough and demanding more in that respect. He goes about his business in a slightly different way. But I think the fact that he hasn't come into a situation at Arsenal before, how bad things are within the dressing room, the kind of work that needs to be done, I think there's an element of risk to that, taking Ancelotti in, as opposed to maybe Mikel Arteta, a very young manager, very energised, very driven, kind of very demanding. But then you'd actually look at Arteta and say, would he get the type of reaction from the players, potentially in the dressing room, that somebody of the stature of Ancelotti would? So there's no given. It's as simple as that, lads, in terms of who you bring in. But it's for me, it's still a massive decision, the manager, and if you can get that right, for me, things can change very quickly. As I said, over the next kind of 12 to 24 months.
Kenny, do you think they do need a fire and brimstone manager, one that will go in and absolutely read the riot act and tell these players exactly what he does think of them? I'm not sure they got that from Unai Emery. I'm not sure Freddie Ljungberg, with someone of his stature in the club or lack of experience as a top-level manager, is able to do that either. Wenger certainly wasn't that type of manager. Maybe they just do need to change the script, even if it's only on a short-term basis. I'm not talking about Paolo Di Canio himself, for example, but I just remember what he did when he was brought in by Sunderland for that short space of time. Maybe what Duncan Ferguson has done, lit a fire underneath those Everton players over the last 2 weeks or so. Somebody of that ilk that can come in, really shake it up, even if you don't necessarily have any intention of having them there for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, but surely the intention, Dave, has to bring at the moment has to be to bring somebody in and to keep him there for the course of the next 2 to 5 years. It can't be short term. I understand if the manager that they want isn't available, may not be available till the summer, then I can understand the thinking, he's going to come in a very short period of time and have an impact. But even then, Dave, the type of manager you're talking about, very few managers manage like that now in the modern game. Even you look at the very successful managers, look at the top of the Premiership and work your way all down. Very, very difficult for managers to operate in that environment now, to treat players like that. Players just don't accept it. Players are different now than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. And managers, I think, have had to modify their approach in terms of how they deal with players. And managers have spoken about that. The great managers, Marino, I remember listening to as well not too long ago, in terms of how you treat players, how you deal with them. So I take your point in terms of what you're saying, but you go into a dressing room, you start shouting and screaming very quickly in the modern game now. Half the dressing room is going to switch off. They're not going to listen. They're actually not going to accept it off you. And that's the reality of the situation in modern football. And the only thing that you've got to change then as a manager, you've got to recognise that the way I used to manage over a longer period, it can't work in the modern game. And particularly in that Arsenal dressing room, I'm not too sure it'd work. Although what I would say, I know there's a lot of doom and gloom around Arsenal, but some outstanding young talent in that Arsenal dressing room. There is something to work with if a manager comes in terms of the next couple of years. The likes of Martinelli, Saka, I'm a big fan as well. Willock, Reece Nelson as well, hasn't got a huge amount of game time at the moment. So there is real talent there. But no, I think short term is only if that man, once they locate the man that they want and he ticks all the boxes, think, yeah, he's the one potential for us going forward, medium to long term. If for any reason they can't get him, they have to wait till the summer, they have to be a little bit patient, then yes, maybe someone in the very short term. But generally speaking, for me, they've got to be looking to get the right man in now as quickly as possible.
It's so difficult to know exactly what the right man is. If you look at the template for managers who could have been successful and who've got a good CV, you go all the way back to AVB coming over and you're like, oh, this guy actually looks like he's got the perfect CV. This should be fine. So what's going to be the definition of the right man for Arsenal? Like what are they looking for? The one kind of characteristic that's going to stand out. You go, yeah, okay, this is exactly what this club needs at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. It's a good question because I'd make an argument. Yeah, everybody else would look at that Arsenal team and say what they've been lacking the last couple of years in terms of that team needs organisation in terms of the tactical setup of the team, particularly from a defensive point of view. Now, you could argue have they brought in the level of players, defensive players that they should have done, particularly in centre half and maybe centre midfield areas like that. Have they got the players of the calibre that they need to have that kind of defensive resilience to keep the number of clean sheets that they need to be successful? Probably not. But in terms of the actual organisation team that's there, could they do it better? Could they be a little bit more compact, a bit more secure, out of possession of football, more difficult to be, keeping more clean sheets, conceding less goals? Yes, I think they could. So that's what I'd say. First of all, get the team set up. Can you get someone who's a good coach, understands the game, and who can actually get the team set up better defensively without losing necessarily that attacking flair which they have? And the interesting thing is that doesn't actually have to come from the manager, Jared. The actual manager that we're talking about actually doesn't necessarily have to have some of those outstanding attributes, because if you're talking about a manager, maybe something like an Ancelotti, say, great personality, great presence, man management, players brilliant, players love and really want to play with him, can pull the whole dressing room kind of club together in that respect. Club will rally behind them. But then you look at him in the training pitch and say, you know what, he's actually not particularly great coach. He actually doesn't enjoy the coach. He actually doesn't do the coaching. Yeah. What are you going to do then? What the good managers do then? They go get the best coaches around. This is what I'm talking about. They go and get a group of 2 or 3 people around, first team coaches, whatever you want to call them, and they're brilliant. They're brilliant in terms of the tactical setup of the team, and you delegate that responsibility to those other people. So pretty much it's not necessarily just all about the manager himself. Doesn't have to have all of those attributes that we're talking about, but as long as the whole management setup has those qualities that I'm talking about, then hopefully you're onto a bit of a winner. So that's the thing. Obviously, don't get too caught up in terms of blinkered in terms of the manager having to tick every single box in terms of all of those things.
Kenny, I want to talk about Manchester City before we ask you about Man United. Is this them back now? Is there like a a freedom that the league is gone, that they can start playing good football? Because that's 45 minutes of devastating football to win the game yesterday, where their best players are all now playing well at the same time.
Yeah, could have been a huge surprise, really, Jerry, in terms of that performance. I mean, generally that's the type of performance they've been churning out for a long period of time. Haven't seen on a week-to-week kind of basis this season. That's why they're such a gulf between them and Liverpool at the moment. But they're always capable, and you always feel as if at some point the motor's going to click in again. They're going to find themselves and run 5, 6, 7 wins on the bounce. So it wasn't a huge surprise. Kind of the tactical changes which he made for the game. I mean, De Bruyne really played as a 10. I mean, really played a 4-4-2 really for most of the game. De Bruyne just operating off Jesus, and that's something which Arsenal couldn't do. With the Arsenal midfield too yesterday, Torreira and Guendouzi, we're talking about Arsenal tactical setup, etc., etc. But that, De Bruyne operating those little pockets, just drifting in behind, receiving the ball into those areas, they found it very difficult to deal with. But you're right, the focus looked right, concentration levels, they're moving the ball very quickly. They're looking back to reasonably close to their best of what we've been used to. So no huge surprise. But I think they need to keep it going. Need to find that consistency now to their play, because although I wouldn't envisage that they're going to catch Liverpool this season, in terms of the Champions League, which has to be now their focus going into the second half of the season, they're going to have to find a little bit of form, momentum, that little bit of self-confidence, that little bit of a strut to their play which they've had previously, if they want ambitions to win that competition, which I think they have a very good chance of doing.
Let's face it, this was against an absolutely shambolic Arsenal team that are now without a result at home in 6 league games, which is the first time that has happened.
That hasn't stopped City. That hasn't stopped this City team wetting the bed already this season, though. No,
my point is you can't say that does this mean City are back. But their central defensive pair yesterday was Nicolas Otamendi and Fernandinho.
But if De Bruyne has confidence and he's back playing well, then the team is transformed.
But they'll concede a load of goals. And that is the biggest problem they have at the moment. They do look so vulnerable. And to say that there was a marked improvement yesterday, offensively, absolutely, but it's against Arsenal. Like, they're up against one of the worst teams in the division as things stand. For City to go there and win 3-0, I mean, that does not raise an eyebrow.
You're right, Jared, in terms of the won't change. You spoke about it, Jared, I think last week, in terms of Manchester City not being out of possession of the ball, not getting around the pitches quickly, in terms of that press, being a little bit too passive, opposition teams having too much, have more time on the ball, etc. It was interesting still that how Foden gave him a little bit more legs in the team yesterday, so that would have been a help. And even the fact they kind of reverted back to a midfield to a kind of defensive shield of Rodri and Gundogan as a midfield too. For me, that gives a little bit more protection to that kind of weakness, which we all know Jez alluded to there, in the centre of the defence. Far easier to protect that area of the pitch when you have two sitters operating in that half of the pitch. That allows you to play with an orthodox 10, which clearly De Bruyne, they've got a couple of players who can play that position as well. So although I'd agree with you, Jen, in terms of the fundamentals haven't changed for Manchester from a defensive point of view, just the fact they've got a little bit more dynamism, a bit more legs in the team with Foden coming in, and just that little tweak in midfield with that kind of defensive two, as opposed to that one pivot, usually Rodri and the two offensive midfielders, just gives them a little bit more legs and maybe just a little bit more defensive security that they had previously.
Well, okay, I want to talk quickly about Manchester United. A 1-1 draw against Duncan Ferguson's Everton. This is kind of how Manchester United season has been, with the big results against the really good teams and then struggling against the supposedly inferior teams. Is that just a product of the inconsistency that's going to be there while the manager learns his trade and while some of those younger players learn exactly what the rigours of a Premier League season involve?
No, I think with Manchester United, I think what you've alluded to there, Jeff, for me, is the deficiencies in the central area of the team, which have kind of been there now for some time, and it's always going to be an issue going forward. The big Pogba question as well comes into it as well. Because when Manchester United, the success that we've seen of late and under Solskjaer, when they play like maybe counter-attacking game, sit deep, soak under pressure, Manchester City was a great example, then break quickly and efficiently. That was best epitomised against City. It was absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed the performance. But the two centre midfielders that day, McTominay and Fred, have played very well, but what do? got around the pitch, made tackles, got tight to people, cut off the pass and lanes, track runners, done all of those things from a defensive point of view. Brilliant, absolutely. Now flip it around a week later, Everton at home, take the initiative, take control of the game, start dictating from that central area of the pitch. You can't really look at McTominay and Fred and expect them to do that in terms of their quality, technical ability, range of pass, and playing in the kind of tight areas. So that's the problem Manchester United have for me. That's the biggest thing. The type of player they can introduce into that central area of the pitch. You can actually do both of those things. That's an easy thing to say, I know, but I think that's the problems which they have. Likes of Everton, different other teams that come to Manchester United, maybe sit into a certain extent, put up those banks of 4-5, wherever it is, and say, right, what have you got? Look to that Manchester United centre midfield and say, right, we actually will give you the ball. Are you good enough to break us down? Actually, can you dribble through us with the ball, or is your passing good enough they can actually play around us and find people in the pockets or space in behind? And to be fair to McTominay, Fred, as well as they've done recently, I don't think they're those type of players. So that's the problem for Manchester United going forward, targeting those players. Is Paul Pogba going to be one of those players? If he is, great, put him in the team. If he's in the right headset, if he's totally committed to the football club and he wants to commit himself there to short to medium term, brilliant. For me, Pogba is still the player you build a team around. If not, get him out the door, get the money in quick, and go and buy some top-class centre midfield players. Easily said and done, I understand that, but that's where the problem is in terms of the criticism that you've levelled against Manchester United at the moment. That's where most of it is for me anyway.
Kenny, there's obviously issues at the back as well, because more often than not, they're not scoring enough to be able to withstand the concession of a goal, and that was the case yesterday. They only conceded once, albeit there was a bit of controversy to it, but that's 11 Premier League games now without a clean sheet. It's quite incredible that any club could go that long without keeping out the opposition. What do you see from them defensively that is the biggest issue for them at the moment? Because if they tighten that up, well, then one goal would be enough.
Yeah, I take your point. No, it's not ideal. I can't see any huge weaknesses there. Certainly across the defensive line. I like the fullbacks in terms of Luke Shaw's come back after injury. Wan-Bissaka's developing, getting better and better. Jess, I think he'll certainly improve. He's someone I really enjoy watching playing. I think it's a really solid central defensive pairing. Has Maguire improved that defensive solidity? Yes, I think he has. Am I the greatest fan of Maguire? No, I'm not, because he's a fantastic ball-playing centre-half, kind of reads the game very well, dominates in both penalty box in terms of heading ability. But for me, still, in terms of athleticism, his mobility, there's still a question mark there. You're talking about Manchester United getting on the front foot, dominating possession. Well, to do that, you're generally pushing towards the halfway line. Your back four are operating within 10 yards of the halfway line, sending your full-backs high up the pitch. And that's when I get a little bit uneasy when I look at United, when Maguire's getting pulled into full-back positions, having to defend in 1v1 situations against counter-attacking teams. Now, I'm not saying point the finger at him and saying he's the problem, but if you're asking me in terms of potential, any kind of weakness there, I still look at Maguire, think potentially counter-attack, athleticism maybe there. Could you argue in terms of a better quality centre-half to play alongside him? Are there better centre-halves out there? I think possibly are. I'd make an argument there's a Manchester United centre-half playing in Italy at the moment who potentially a better defender than Lindelof. I got a lot of criticism for that over the past couple of years. But in terms of the actual game itself around Europe, are there better centre-halves who could come in like great athletes, physically imposing, quick over the ground, who maybe could better complement Maguire? Yes, I think there are, but you're going to have to spend big money, maybe 70 to 100 million pounds on the likes of Koulibaly, players like this who could come in and improve that defensive line. So is that the key area for Manchester United where they need to improve at the moment? Now, for me, it's centre midfield. It's all about centre midfield for me. But if you have the money to spend, money is no object. And there seems to be at times that with Manchester United, money is no object. For me, that left-sided centre-half position, Jerry, if you're talking about where could you improve that Manchester United defensive line, it's that left-sided centre-half position.
Kenny, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us.
Cheers, lads.
Kenny Cunningham giving us his thoughts there. A reminder, of course, on Sunday we had live commentary of the two big games. Gary Breen and Nathan called Arsenal's 3-0 defeat to Manchester City. Stephen Doyle and Brian Kerr were in Old Trafford for Manchester United's 1-1 draw against Everton. Seamus Cohen spoke with Stephen about Duncan Ferguson after the game. Have a look.
Duncan Ferguson has been kind of at pains to say this week that he doesn't want the manager's job. I know it's only 2 games in, but what would your feelings be on him maybe getting the job on a permanent basis?
Well, Fergie's coming out saying that. I don't want to be putting extra pressure on him, but I can only speak on what I've seen the last week, and for me it's refreshing to see someone who's got that much care for the club. And honestly, he's a great man. you know, he's showed people what it means to play for this football club. He showed people what this football club's about, and you know, he's a top man, and I know whether he gets it for a week or a month or 6 months or a year, whatever the case may be, the players will always leave it out there for him. So, as I said, that's above my head whether he gets it or not. Fergie's come in, he's been great, it's been refreshing, and we've went game to game, and you know, if someone told us last week, you know, that we'd pick up 4 points from these games, it would have been, you know, the position we were in, how we were playing, would have been maybe hard to believe. So it's been a great couple of games, and Leicester's massive.
From what you're saying about Duncan there, would it be the perfect gift to give Duncan to get us into a Carabao Cup semi-final on Wednesday? Yeah,
and the thing about Duncan is he doesn't want it for himself. He wants it for us players, which is incredible. There's no ego, there's nothing about it. You know, I spoke to him a couple of days ago, and we've got obviously a team manager parking space. No chance he'll park in it. He understands. It's not about him. It's never been about him. And as players, it's so refreshing to see. He's a great man, and I can't speak highly enough of him, to be honest.
Yeah, high praise from Seamus Coleman there for the stand-in current manager who won't take the manager's parking space. Now, this Christmas, Best Menswear have the men in your life sorted. Check them out for beautiful gifts from the likes of Hugo Boss, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein and Marco Capelli, with gifts from as little as €20. They're going to take the pain out of Christmas shopping for you all this week here on OTBM, where thanks to Best Menswear, we've got prizes and gift guides each morning to help you in the build-up to Christmas. You can win a €100 gift voucher to Best Menswear on OTBM this morning. Share this morning's show, either tweet or share, and best comment on the weekend sport is going to win, and we'll announce the winner before the end of the show. Tune in all week for some great prizes and the rest of our gift guides. To kick us off, we've got Chef Gary O'Hanlon, who's joined us in the studio this morning, a long-suffering Manchester United fan, I believe.
Oh, yes, I am indeed.
What do you think of the notion that Chris Smalling is suddenly the second coming of Jesus Christ?
Oh, God, yeah. I've been hearing a lot of that lately, you know, but look, he's playing in a poor league, you know, like Serie A isn't what it used to be. But
was Johnny Evans not the one that got away?
Yeah, in hindsight, yes.
Like, but not even hindsight.
At that point,
yeah,
that there was no hand wringing when Evans was allowed to leave.
No,
now, in hindsight, it was a terrible decision, and they'd have him back in a heartbeat. But he couldn't get into a United side that was populated by centre halves such as Chris Smalling, such as Phil Jones.
Phil Jones is one of the worst signings that ever happened.
And yet they continue to re-sign him.
Yeah, I felt bad for him actually in that last Sheffield United game. I think it's time for him to move on. I think he's only 27, is that?
Yeah, he's
he seems like he's playing for like 12 seasons.
And look, maybe he gets good at 30. He's one of those central defenders who, you know, plays to 37 and actually learns all those mistakes in his athleticism. Anyway,
I don't blame Phil Jones anymore. I said on the day of the Sheffield United game, the issue is with the manager that picks Phil Jones.
Fair enough.
There's no fault at the door of Phil Jones any longer.
Yeah. Gary's not here for us to pour over the difficulties of Manchester United. You're here to rescue anybody who might be in danger, as we all are at this point with 10 days to go, of not having enough presents in our lives for the people that we love. And we thought that maybe you could talk about some food.
Yeah, well, 10 days to go, which generally means you have 9 days to Christmas Eve, when most of us usually start dipping. Yeah, so we're looking at a couple of different Christmas ideas. So King of the Kitchen, practical cookery school, Paul Flynn at the Tannery, February 8th. 10 to 3:30. It's $195. That's the first one I'll kick off with. Paul Flynn's a brilliant cook, great cookery school as well. So it's sort of hands-on. He does demos, talks through the whole day of what you're kind of doing, and then everybody gets stuck in it. So we sort of a bit of a cookery demonstration, then followed by hands-on practical, which is the only way really to
actually learn.
To learn, yeah, instead of just sitting there and watching the chef going on and on and on about it. Yeah, so that's where I would kick off with. It's a really good place, and look, you can stay over then as well when you're down there, you know what I mean, make a weekend off it if you want to take your better half with you as well. But that's a nice wee present. Like I've been down at the cookery school, I've been there, I've stayed and eaten at the Tannery 2 minutes, and Paul has a really nice way about him, you know what I mean, like for a chef at the level that he's cooked at. I mean,
most of you guys aren't that nice, is what you're saying?
No, not really, no. Yeah, well, he's not intimidating, you know what I mean, like he just has a really, really nice way about him, and I think anybody that would be lucky enough to be in his company has always you know done well.
If anybody wants to start learning to cook, okay, so that's a great one day. Are there other types of ways you can access it? Like, it always strikes me that the first thing anybody should learn is how to chop.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you see, is you nearly anybody that kind of wants to go to that or is interested in a cookery school day, they're sort of a keen home cook anyway. They're sort of into it. They generally have a few basic knife skills. But on the day, Paul and he would have one or two of his staff as well, probably working with him at any course. I mean, even if you're a complete novice, you wouldn't be afraid of a day like that, because again, they'll be walking around you and they're showing you like basic knife skills and stuff like that. But again, for anyone that would be buying that for a fella, or a fella buying it even for himself, you're probably a keen home cook and can handle a wee knife, you know.
Fair enough. Next one up is a bargain. We all love bargains. It's the Kenwood K-Mix.
Yes, absolutely. The beauty about this here, well, look, they're 50% off right now in Ireland. It's only like 230 odd bucks. I think whenever these came out first, only a year and a half, maybe less than 2 years ago, they would have been up over 700. So they've just gone down in the last month or so, from 500 bucks to about 230. So even just a bit more than 50% off. Beauty about the Kenwood K-Mix as well is all the attachments. So I suppose for fellas in particular, and it's got a built-in drive that you can buy attachments for. Like, so if you're not really into making cakes or baking, you make pasta, you can roll it in it. It has things that you'll hook on. Mince, you can mince your own meat.
Right.
Yeah, which is really cool actually. I would use mincers on the attachments all the time. And then you have...
Why would you not just buy mince? Is it because you want, like...
Well, the thing is, you see, is if you're lucky enough, I mean, to live in certain parts of Ireland, I mean, like, you know, you're in game season right now, you're in shooting season. I mean, I know down in Longford where I live, I would know a lot of guys that would shoot animals, whatever, and if you've got the space to freeze it, you can take different cuts, shoulders, haunches of venison, whatnot, and then you're mincing it yourself. It's stuff that you can't maybe get here and there. And then the other side of it is it's a nice wee bit of theatre. Like, I throw on the mincing attachments and my two wee dudes. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they love watching it all kind of coming out. And I buy a couple of pork chops sometimes, and I keep on a wee bit of fat. And you'd eat fat for mince.
Yeah.
You'd never buy mince that says lean. And like, it takes a few seconds to make your own. It just adds a wee bit of theatre. But they come with a sausage making kit as well. So if you've ever tried to make sausages, it's not for the faint of heart, but good crack if you get into a wee rhythm off it and you want to try your own, you know.
And is that mince much nicer? Like,
look, I'm not going to say it's nicer. It's just the fact that you know what's going into it. You know what I mean? The one thing about mince, and in general, when you're buying it, look, not you just
go on,
when you're making your own mince, you know what's in there.
Butcher.
Yeah, no, trust your butcher. Yeah, but look, at the same time, you know what's going in there. If you've got cuts of meat, whatever, and it is nice to make your own, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so that's good value at the moment in Ireland. It's about half price. Wines Direct. Everybody likes a bit of booze.
Bit of booze, yeah. And look, I was kind of nervous about throwing in the boozy one or whatever, but I wasn't sure if Tommy was going to say no to the booze. But the Wines Direct one is, yeah, good man, Tommy. But it's a good service. You can order online. There's loads. If you go on winesdirect.ie, there's loads of different, like, boxes of 6, boxes of 12. I got this delivery last year. It just comes out there, based in Mullingar, but they do nationwide delivery, and there's all sorts of price ranges in there. So you can go as expensive as you want, as fancy as you want, or then you can just go like lower end, and you can hand pick your own box of 12 or box of 6 as well. I mean, they have a couple of set boxes there that takes the thinking out. You can get a French box, an Italian box, and so on and so forth. So really, really good service. And you know what? Like, they work with a lot of really nice little producers here and there. Like, I would know the company from way back in the day, Gavin, and I'm trying to think of the other brother that has it now. Like, but Paddy would have been the owner. He's passed on now, but really, really good company. But again, it's just like you're getting restaurant quality wines delivered to your door. And look, there's enough. I do the Christmas dinner, and I do enough carrying of the food stuff and all the bits and pieces. The last thing you want in the trolley and lugging is bottles of wine. So if it can be delivered right to the door, I'm all for that, you know.
Okay, the next one is a barbecue called Kamado Joe.
Yeah, the Kamado Joe, yeah. Look, I've gone for the Kamado Junior, which is 520. This is probably the most expensive of all the things by a long shot that we're talking about. But like, these can go for right up over $2,500 for the larger ones. But I mean, that's a unit that's quite big. I mean, you would do a whole turkey in that. But again, lots of houses would have these. The Kamado Joes are the big green eggs. Like, a room outside in Limerick, again, they deliver around the country. But the other thing to say then about their website as well, A Room Outside, if you Google it, is there's barbecue kits. There's loads of different wee gift ideas there. If you just go through the site, it's brilliant. Even from the charcoals and the barbecue kits, there's all sorts. But again, the Kamado Joe, I've worked with one of those every now and again. A lot of chefs would have them even on the countertops within restaurants. So you're getting that barbecue-y, smoky sort of a finish on food, even though, like, you're inside the restaurant, you know what I mean? Like, so again, it's just these wee units, they could even sit up on your countertop, right, like if you had it in, like, or look, people could have them outside. But the smaller one, if you've got good extraction in the house, like, you could actually keep it up on a countertop, you know?
And so what are you doing with this? It's just a normal barbecue.
Yeah, but they close in, like, you know, like the thing about them is it's like a lot of the barbecues, really, people are more grilling, they're not barbecuing, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, a barbecue's closed in, you're working off white heat, and they're brilliant units.
I think this is a fundamental misunderstanding that we have in this country. Barbecue in America is like slow cooked.
Yes.
It's not burnt on the outside and raw on the inside.
No, not at all. Like, a lot of people, like, they're flipping a couple of burgers and a few chicken skewers in the summer or whatever, like on a wee barbecue outside, and it's all opened up or whatever. Really, with barbecue, and you're getting good marinades on, either dry rubs or wet rubs or what have you, getting the temperature right, getting a white heat in there, which is basically you're getting it really, really hot until the embers are almost white. Then you're controlling, and then the temperature control in these is really good as well. Like, the gauge is really easy to use, and obviously then it has inserts as well if you want to add liquids or wines or alcohols or different chips, wood chips and whatnot, so you can smoke on them as well. Brilliant units, really are.
Okay, and at the other end of the market here, you've recommended a specific chopping board for us.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I was chatting to my wife at this the other day, and I was like going, you know, I don't know how many buddies' houses we go into, like, and you'll see either like these wee slippy sort of rubber mats or even a glass chopping board. I mean, I don't know how a glass chopping board was ever invented, but they're out there. Yeah. It's hard to believe. But a good wooden chopping board, and at $22 from Argos, you can check it out, argos.ie. And the one that I have up there, I bought it myself. I think when we moved to our house, like, it's exactly 6 years ago today, believe it or not. And it looks as good as new. It's a wooden board. What I have then is I have a couple of wee tiny smaller ones that I just use, like if I'm using like raw chicken or this, that and the other. I tend to have one wee tiny one that I use for that. But for all fruit, veg, anything that I'm chopping, slicing, finishing, it's on a good wooden board and a good knife, really. I didn't go into the knives, but I think it kind of goes without saying that every house should be equipped with one or two fairly decent chef's knives.
I was terrified of sharpening my knives while the kids can still kind of... You're a chef. I mean, obviously, you just take it as like...
Well, my house is full of knives.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and two kids as well. Look, I mean, it's like anything. You just keep them away from kids, you know what I mean?
You tell them, stay away. But that doesn't... They're like, oh, what is this shiny thing that's sharp?
Any kind of knife really is gonna cut you. Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be overly sharp to do damage or to cut you. You know what I mean? Like a blunt knife or a bad knife will do more. Well, that'll do more damage to the cook.
Yeah.
It's really a blunt knife is where your trouble is whenever you're struggling to get it through something.
Yeah.
And
so
your weight comes right over it, and then all of a sudden it starts to work and it goes right through it. Whereas when it's sharp, it's just slice and slice and slice, and then you never have a worry about it. You know.
What are you cooking for Christmas?
It's very traditional, actually, in our house, yeah. Nettie, my wife, her family are just like mine in Donegal. It's turkey and ham, glazed ham. I have my warnings from Bernie, the mother-in-law, to have one of them. So I always have a glazed ham for Sambo's Christmas Eve. And then it'll be... And I make a toutière as well, actually, for Christmas morning, which is a Canadian meat pie.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's 50% pork, 50% mince. I only make it once a year, unless I do a photo shoot, which I've done a few times in the last few weeks just for Christmas publications. But generally, we make it. It's a recipe I would have got from a family I was close to when I lived in Boston, and that's come down from generations. And minced pork, beef, cinnamon, cloves, and it's bound with a little bit of mashed potato then, and just basically into like a basic savoury pastry and baked, and you eat that with ketchup on Christmas morning.
Right,
it's incredible.
Amazing. What's it called?
It's a toutière. Yeah, it's really easy to make as well. If you were to Google it, I've made it. Like, I've had the recipe up here and there, but it's
pastry in a pastry filling.
Yeah.
That'd
so you just basically line a pie dish with like a savoury pastry, but you can buy the just roll pastry, like a short crust pastry. If you don't want to bother making that, just rub a wee bit of butter in a little 9-inch pie dish, line it out, fill it with your meat mixture, top it, rub it with a little bit of egg wash, and then 200 degrees for about 20 minutes, and then you just cut it into like triangles or slices, just like a cake, and a big dollop of Heinz ketchup, and it's absolutely amazing. It's really, really worth doing, and that's a tradition that they've had for years over there, and then I do it now back where I live in Longford every Christmas morning, whoever pops down.
Is there a lot of pressure? Obviously, big expectations in your household with the in-laws in place.
Yeah, well, it's easy though, because it's like... comes easy to me, like, you know what I mean? The only thing is last year was the only Christmas Eve that I didn't go out, and I actually did a load of prep. So last Christmas Day was the first, because I'd always just do everything from start to finish Christmas morning, and I do be stuck for time because I kind of do a fair amount of sides. Do you know what I mean? Like, I do a Dauphinese potato from my Rosa Penna days that has ham and tomato, onion, cream, salt, pepper, finished with cheddar cheese. It's a gorgeous potato dish. Then I do a Brussels sprout and a smoked bacon mornay cream. Finish that with like a truffle panko herb crust. And there'll always be maybe a candied sweet in there. A roast carrot. Try and use your oven, like roast as much as you can, so you're keeping a lot less pots. And then sherry trifle. I will say though, I ruined the dinner last year because I decided to get fancy, and I make the trifle the way Mommy and Daddy would have made it back in the day. So that's how Annette's parents do too, like with a tin fruit cocktail and just packing jelly and
sherry.
I even buy the sponge. And I don't use sherry. I don't put sherry into it. I'm one of them. But last year I decided, you know what, I might put some fresh pineapple into it. And what I didn't realise is pineapple eats gelatin.
Oh no.
So yeah, I mean, for 26 years cooking at the highest level, and I didn't know that pineapple had an enzyme in it that eats gelatin. So I was moving over and back the bowl every now and again. I was like, Jesus, why is it not setting? And then a science teacher buddy told me, he goes, oh, we use that. We talk about that in science class. And I was like, right, there you go.
Happy days.
So don't do that. Don't put pineapple into
Even the
your
best
trifle.
can make mistakes. How's life in France?
Brilliant. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm home now for about a month or so. And I'll probably go back just for top up the kitchen, buy a few bits and pieces, plates, things like that. But I probably won't be cooking again until February, I'd say, because it's a golf estate. So it's wet. Yeah, it's pretty nice, yeah.
A nice break. And any shows coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to be probably back on the 6 o'clock show early January, and the BBC. I don't have a date yet, but they've been on to me this past week. So I had my BBC debut this year, so I'm back on probably early in the new year, yeah.
Well, listen, congrats. Thanks a million for coming in to us today. If anybody wants any more information, at Gaza Chef, and we might tweet the link to the recipe for the...
Toutière. Yeah, I'll send it on to you.
Nice one. That was great, Gary. Thanks a million. That's the first of our gift guides this week. It's all in association with Best Menswear, who have the men in your life sorted. Check them out for beautiful gifts from the likes of Hugo Boss, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein and Marco Capelli. And we're also giving you the opportunity to win a €100 gift voucher to Best Menswear on OTBM this morning. Just share this morning's show, and the best comment on the weekend sport will win. Rugby coming up a little later with Alan Quinlan. First, here's Andy Dunn speaking to Neil Tracy about the nature of Munster's heroic defeat against Saracens.
It's not something Munster people, as I suppose, as a tradition, like to accept to be a valiant loser. They've had a lot of heroic defeats in European semi-finals in recent years, and I know it's something they're trying to get out of their culture and acceptance of heroic defeats. But I think today in particular, there's mitigating circumstances for them in the loss. The loss of O'Mahony, their captain, prior to kick-off with a tight groin. I think it was tight during the week and obviously didn't come through the warm-up. John Ryan was crucial to their strategy in terms of how strong he was going to scrummage against Vunipola, and early signs were he was dominating that battle. And then obviously a serious injury to Tyg Burns. So added to Joey Carberry not being involved for quite a while, there's probably four other key personnel other than CJ Stander and Conor Murray. So very, very tough in terms of what they lost. But they brought a lot of physicality, a lot of discipline in defence, showed some good signs in attack against probably the most renowned defence in Europe at this stage. So there's a lot of positives for Munster to take home without a result.
It's spinning! Jonathan Sexton!
I think it's spinning is out. Johnny Sexton was beaten last week, wasn't he? Le Drop is gone.
Who beat him?
Did Katie Taylor beat him? Didn't even make it that far? No. Somebody else beat him. Oh, Larry beat him.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. So this morning we have, it's well told at this point. It's Katie Taylor against Galway's All-Ireland. The poll should be live now. What are we? 8:43. So you've got today to vote against Katie Taylor against Galway's All-Ireland win. Owen didn't want Galway's All-Ireland win to make it into the last 16. It made it as far as the quarterfinals. It's not a bad performance, is it? There's the Instagram poll. Micheál Donoghue meeting his dad with Liam McCarthy. Unbelievable moment, really. And then Katie Taylor with the gold medal in London. It feels fairly straightforward.
Katie?
Yeah.
You already know my opinions on this. That moment, the greatest moment of Galway's All-Ireland final, or the season they won it, is either that Joe Canning point against Tipperary in the semi-final, or that moment there where Micheál Donoghue is with his father, bringing Liam McCarthy back over.
So you're voting for both of those. If you're a Galway fan and you're like a hurling fan, and you're a believer in that kind of stuff being important. Like, I think that if we'd had a whole decade where Joe Canning hadn't won an All-Ireland, it would have just been bad for sport. It would have been like, sport makes no sense, it's not justice, there's no fairness. And I know there isn't, and there's not supposed to be, but him winning an All-Ireland and getting salvation was important.
Yeah, I do remember sitting down to watch that final and thinking, in a couple of hours' time, either Brick Welsh or Joe Canning will have an All-Ireland medal. And for me, that was huge, because they both were so deserving of it. And unfortunately, the Brick is going to leave his career without an All-Ireland. It would have been terrible if both of them had been in that case. But I knew that one of them was going to walk away with their dreams fulfilled after that afternoon. But if I'm thinking of these great sporting moments...
They are in different levels of their careers, though, in fairness. Like, Brick, great servant. Joe Canning, all-time great.
Yeah. Yeah, with all in terms of his longevity and his ability to perform at the highest level for so long, I mean, Michael Walsh is an absolute legend. But Joe was one of the great hurlers of his generation and many generations.
Yeah.
And that needed to be crowned with a Celtic cross. Those two moments I mentioned were astonishing, and they're the two moments that stand out for me. The final, the goals, obviously, the Waterford goal and the Galway goal, they were huge moments within the game. But that moment when Katie's hand was lifted by the referee is timeless, particularly because you just didn't know
if she was going to win or not.
Yeah, because I mean, you could, you know, the lip readers amongst us will have seen her mouthing as soon as the bell went at the end of the final round, "Did I do it?" as she looked at her corner straight away. There was serious doubt in Katie's mind as to whether or not she had done enough. It certainly wasn't comprehensive, and that was a very nervous few seconds when, you know, everything had to be sorted out, and we were getting ready for the two boxers to meet in the middle of the ring, and then the relief, not just for her but for the country, when her hand was held aloft, because it was just it was the culmination of so many years of anticipation and expectation, that for all she achieved at EBU level and world level and the countless medals she had tucked away, this was the holy grail, and for her not to get it would have been heartbreaking.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like, there was no boxing in the Olympics except for the fact that Katie Taylor was so dominant and rallied everybody behind her and managed to get the entire sport to the level that it was supposed to be at. And then this was salvation, and this was deliverance, and this was all those things, which probably terms I shouldn't use because they have religious overtones. But yeah, and look, then there was the debate about whether or not she actually won the final. She probably did.
Yeah, I'm not educated enough in those terms to be able to sit here and, you know, pontificate as to whether or not she absolutely won it or didn't, or whether her opponent
Never
was
stopped you
robbed
before,
or not.
Dave. 8:47 a.m. this morning. You're watching OTB AM. In our search for Ireland's OTB moment of the decade, we did also get the thoughts of Everton and Ireland captain Seamus Coleman on his number one. Have a look.
Off the ball, we're compiling the best Irish sporting moments of the last decade. Robbie Brady's goal against Italy is in the last four, along with Shane Long's goal, Shane Lowry winning the Open, and Katie Taylor winning at the Olympic Games. Just quickly, your thoughts on just that night, Robbie Brady getting that goal against Italy?
All four of them are amazing moments, by the way, as well. But obviously, I was only part of. Well, we all feel part of it, don't we, when our sporting heroes succeed? But I was playing a part in one of the games, and when Robbie Brady put that goal in, was, you know, words can't describe how we felt that night. It was amazing. So, you know, for me, that was a great moment.
Iconic as well, up there with the great ones, just like Ray Houghton's goal against England, Robbie Keane against Germany. Yeah, I think so, and just the way it happened as well. You know, Wes Hill had missed that chance beforehand. I thought that's our chance gone, and you know, to see the run he made, he was in his own 18-yard box. He galloped up the pitch, and Wes put in a great ball and a great header, and, you know, the scenes after it, and, you know, unbelievable experience, and, you know, my best experience of being in an Irish shirt. And quickly, if you had to pick one of the four, Shane Lowry, Katie Taylor, Shane Long against Germany, could any of those pip him? No, I'm going to sit in the fence, because they're all legends. You know, Shane Lowry, Katie Taylor. I watched her documentary. What an inspiration to all girls in Ireland, all males in Ireland. You know, unbelievable. Shane Lowry came to see us in the hotel, no ego, what a gentleman. You know, we're so proud of these people, and obviously Long and Robbie Brady, but for me to pick one, it's difficult, so you know, we're proud of them all.
Still out, brilliant analysis as ever. That guy's got to be a good pundit, isn't he?
He's got a bright future ahead of him, Seamus Coleman.
Yeah, Anne-Marie's here, how are you?
Morning, how are things?
Today is mostly about the Champions League draw?
Yeah, the Champions League draw does take place later on. Premier League sides will find out their opponents for the last 16 this morning. Holders Liverpool and Man City obviously will get an easier draw. That's after they topped their groups. Chelsea and Tottenham, though, unseeded, so they could face the likes of Barcelona and Juventus, as well as PSG. And then, in reaction to the Premier League yesterday, Arsenal interim boss Freddie Ljungberg says that his players are good enough to challenge those top 6 places. They're 3 points off that position after yesterday's 3-0 defeat at City, which you obviously discussed in length with Kenny earlier on, so I won't dwell too much on that. There's just 1 win, though, in 11 games for Arsenal, so Ljungberg is insisting that they're not far away from where they need to be.
I think we put up a similar, almost the same lineup against West Ham, for example, where we played really well and could have won 4-5-1. We played in against City and they punish us straight away, and we lose 3-0. So I think that shows the differences in qualities of different teams in this league.
They're not where they need to be.
Stating the obvious there, Man City are better than West Ham, says Freddie Ljungberg.
Challenging the top 6 is a very grim statement.
Isn't it? It's like...
if you're an Arsenal supporter.
But they've got the same number of points as Palace and Newcastle, and they're 1 ahead of Burnley. What a season.
That's insane.
It's all about the Europa League.
I mean, yeah, those
Thursday nights.
Yeah, exactly.
Europa League places.
Those cosy Thursday nights.
At least it's a way to try and get into the Champions League, right?
There are some very good teams dropping into the Europa League now.
Look, I don't think there's any chance of winning the Europa
for
League,
example,
but
Red
that's
Bull
what their
Salzburg.
ambition is now.
Imagine Arsenal going to Salzburg to take on that Red Bull side, particularly if they still have Haaland in their team.
They might not, though.
They may not have.
Yeah.
Anyways, elsewhere then, it's obviously this time of year, the darts. Michael Smith is the latest high-profile player to crash out of the championship at the Alexandra Palace. Last night's runner-up was beaten 3-1 in the second round by number 69, Luke Woodhouse. So an emotional evening for him, and he gave his reaction afterwards.
In the last set, I thought he was 2-1 up. My head had sort of gone into a different place altogether, and I thought he was 2-1 up. And when I hit the double, and they said game shot, I was shocked. But to beat Michael, it's what I think. It's my debut at the World Championships. It's an absolute dream. It's a dream. So yeah, it's brilliant. I've put in so much hard work. Since when I knew I'd qualified for the Players' Championship in my head, and I'd done enough to qualify for the Worlds, I made sure I'd done sort of 4 or 5 hours every single day. I didn't want to leave no stone unturned. I just wanted to make sure if I was going to come up and lose, it was because somebody played better than me, not because I didn't play very well myself. So I think it's just the work I've put in is allowing me to go and play like that.
Can a darter legitimately say he's put in lots and lots of hard work?
4 or 5 hours a day.
Can he? Is that hard work?
It's a ridiculous question. That's one of the,
to do anything for 4 or 5 hours a day.
Darty.
It's one of the more illogical questions you've asked in recent times.
A dartsman. Is that what it is?
A darts player.
A darter.
4 or 5 hours.
A darts lad.
Practice at anything.
I mean, come on.
Imagine the concentration.
Okay.
You have to appreciate it.
For 4 to 5 hours. I mean, come on.
What about a golfer swinging the club for 4 or 5 hours?
Yeah, physical exertion.
Standing there for 4 or 5 hours is not easy.
I mean, come on. Have you ever worked at a pub?
Yes, many times.
Yeah, so I don't think that's hard work. I think it's an interesting description of what he does himself that you both obviously clearly agree with.
Play darts tonight for 4 or 5 hours.
No thanks.
See how tired you
No
are.
thanks. I have better things to do with my life.
Concentration levels
is darts
alone.
a sport?
I don't care what sport or not.
Every year
I don't care. I don't care if it's a sport or not. Yeah, fair enough. You guys can go and enjoy yourselves at Christmas time.
But even
I'm not going to rain in your parade.
How can you not appreciate it? Like, as in, like the levels of difficulty.
Well, because there's loads of things I don't appreciate in life.
Snooker? Would you equate snooker in the same terms?
Yeah, I can see how. I just can't see how it's hard work to throw darts for 4 hours. I can't. Because, you could be drinking while you're doing it. And a lot of them probably do. Anyway.
They don't drink while they're at the hockey.
Last story.
There's Irish action in the darts this evening. Fermanagh Brendan Dolan is up against 2-time champion Gary Anderson. You'll obviously be glued to that, and Carlo's Steve Lennon, Limerick man William O'Connor, and Meath's 17-year-old Cian Barry is set for an emotional or a good evening. He's on the hockey against in Alexandra Palace. They're all in action this evening, so I'll give you an update tomorrow.
Can't wait. 17-year-old. Best of luck.
It won't take Gilroy long to hop on this bandwagon.
Oh no!
The Irish guys
imagine if an Irish player wins.
I've studiously avoided this bandwagon forever. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to him about the difficulties and on all the work. I mean, but I hope he's doing his leaving cert and reading his English
homework. There's no future in darts.
And if he wins the world title at the Ali Pali, he'll be one of the contenders for Next decade's moment
Yeah,
of the decade.
moment of the
No,
decade.
no, because that will still be this one. Oh, it won't
We'll
be
have
over.
to go back to the
January's
start,
here.
voting
January, is
again,
it?
yeah.
Okay, all right, we got to go. Alan Quinlan's with us in just a minute. If you missed anything from our podcast this morning, you can catch it back. It's fully timestamped, so you can stroll through. It says stroll, but I mean scroll. To subscribe to the OTB AM podcast, just search for OTB AM wherever you get your pods. The best place is the new Go Loud app. We'll give you your first sports fix every morning. Still adapting to an Irish Christmas, Leinster and soon to be Ireland's James Lowe explained to Maura Trassa how he's going to be celebrating.
I come from a place where over Christmas you don't play rugby. You have beers in the sun, and yeah, it's a different thing, but it's just the way it is over here. We play footy over Christmas, but it's just how it is. We've got 3 big games coming up. Can't wait.
I'd be murdered now without letting you go, without asking, what do you do with your lamb? How do you cook it?
I actually. So I cook it in a barbecue, gas, off direct, so indirect heat. So there's a wee tin pan sort of in there, raise it off the grill. Lemon, rosemary, salt and pepper. It's important to salt and pepper it. And
obviously.
Then obviously for every 500 grams, it's about half an hour in there, 180 degrees. And, that's, I could teach you how to cut lamb. That's the hardest bit of it. But yeah, I've got 12 people to feed, so...
12 people? Where are you getting the 12?
A whole load of foreigners, wives, friends and family. We're actually going down to Longford, hiring out a big house, so, it should be some crack.
So lamb and Longford for Christmas, and then into the Interpros and all that kind of stuff. Before I let you go, one more thing. I remember last year you were saying to make friends when you came here, you were doing painting and Prosecco classes. How's the painting come on since?
Oh, mate, painting was second best that day. I was more into the Prosecco. It was more pints and painting, but haven't gone back, although it was great crack. If you are looking for something to do, we did it at the Jar on Camden Street. Awesome.
Look, I'll let you go. Enjoy your Christmas and your lamb. Thank you very much.
James Lowe is a walking endorsement for lamb, Prosecco, the Jar on Camden Street and Longford. whoever he's tapped up.
And making the most out of life.
Yeah.
Doing anything you're doing with a smile on your face.
Yeah. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you, Joe?
James Lowe's pretty good, but so's Larmer. Larmer's reached a level now where you're like, look. Anyway. No, let's not talk about the World Cup again, right? We should have a pact that we're never going to talk about it again until we have to. But Jesus, Larmer would have been good in the World Cup, wouldn't he?
Would have been, yeah. He was, I think he was sensational. We did a game Saturday for Virgin, and every time he touched the ball, the second half was a little bit strange because obviously the game is over and it gets a bit scrappy and stuff like that. But his ability to just step and accelerate and probably win the ball in the air was the key. That's the area that you want him to be rock solid on, and if the attack is, we know what the attack is going to be like.
Leo Cullen was asked, obviously, look at his, I didn't hear the question, but I saw the answer was like, that's grand, but actually he was really strong under the high ball, which is more important for us.
Very important, I think, and that's probably the key when you're playing in, windy, wet conditions possibly you could have in a Six Nations. So it's been able to dominate the air, and to be fair to Rob Kearney, like he was the best in the business at that. Across the board, I think so dominant, so aggressive, continuously winning the ball in the air, and those 50-50s, 60-40s, 70-30s, he won them all when they were against him, when he had no right at times. So I think that's always, that's the only question mark, and any time Larmer's played full back, that question comes up, well, the rock solid kind of fundamentals, and I just thought there was a few on Saturday, particularly in that first half, they were 50-50, and he dominated.
But he's not just taking them, like a fullback would take them and get smashed. Jordan Larmer was actually, to borrow an NFL term, making yards after the catch as well. He was coming through the catch. He was getting beyond the guy who was there to hit him.
That'll not always be the case. There'll be ones that you're just in the air, you're going to have that collision, you're going to come down, you're going to get smashed.
Yeah.
So they're the kind of things that you want solid from him, and defensively, making good defensive reads, because, again, something Rob Kearney was outstanding with, and he's still outstanding, in my opinion, as regards his spatial awareness. He was never the quickest fullback in the world, but his ability to just look one step ahead and be able to read the game very, very well. So oftentimes when an out half would see some space before he gets the ball, and it's good. That's what good fullbacks do. Okay, they can cover that space, and get to it, show a bit of a gap, and Kearney was really good at that. So they're the kind of things that he'll be testing in. If he's one bad game at full back, if he gets selected for Ireland, everyone will start kind of going. So, I wouldn't get too far ahead, but what you get in his attack is just sensational.
He's not going to get that space again for quite some time, is he? Or in a Six Nations, like Northampton defensively were.
Yeah, they were
shocking.
very, very poor, and he realised that, and everyone who knows the game inside out will. The different coaches and Six Nations coaches he comes up against, but he has an ability to step even in tight spaces
both
and
feet.
stuff. Yeah, he has. Yeah, so and he's strong. He doesn't mind contact as well. So he's fast becoming, the full package, and I think it's just strengthening those fundamentals more for him will make him a real top class player.
Timing of his passes as well, Quinny. You mentioned on Saturday. Like when you say the full package, yeah, brilliant in the air. We know his acceleration. We know his ability to step off both feet. But the weight on his passes and the timing of some of the passes he delivered on Saturday, when he could have kept going with it or he could have thrown it a bit earlier, that seems to have come on as well.
Yeah, and probably the last break that he made where he was stepping and bobbing and weaving and the crowd were reacting to it, that was probably one where you think, right, okay, it's time for an offload or a pass now, but he kept going. But there was a few in the first half where they zoned in on him and they realised that he was going to cause them problems, and just give him a lovely weighted pass. James Lowe ran onto one at one stage there in that first half, and it was simple stuff, but just executed brilliantly and with pace onto the ball. So, it was a fantastic performance from him.
We've been talking a good bit about Caelan Doris, just how impressive he's been taking his opportunity. It was interesting that he plays the whole game, and he's going to play a lot more of these games, and he's going to play the whole game. It's going to get harder and harder the more games he plays for somebody to take his place.
Take his place on the Leinster side?
Takes place on the Leinster side, yeah.
For sure. I think he's he got a head knock a couple of weeks ago. Max Deegan played a couple of games and played really well, and he's a very good player as well. So,
but Doris was straight back in.
I think Doris is just after accelerating to another level. He was sensational in the two games, and I think he is a real option for Ireland now, not in World Cup in 4 years' time, now, because I think he's just a really intelligent footballer. He's all action, he's athletic, he's brilliant ability to step, and so I think he's a real option now for Ireland, and I think the way he's played, so he's a top class talent, and I know Leinster have been kind of excited about him for a couple of years, and he's shown that over the two games. As Dave said, Northampton really, I think, after last week, I think they were shell-shocked. They played really well in the first half against Leinster, the away game. Second half, it just kind of went to pieces. They threw everything at Leinster and had no answer for the Leinster defence. Leinster just counter-punched, scored tries and dominated them. They were deflated coming to Dublin this week, made a number of changes, so they were poor. But I think over the two games, you have to kind of keep perspective. I think he was absolutely brilliant, and I think he's a real option for Ireland now.
To start? Or is that like he plays the Italy game? Is that what you mean?
I'd seriously consider him being in the conversation about starting for Ireland.
Well, who's in better form as number 8?
Yeah, well, it's not. Do you know what? I was trying to think about this before.
You have to pick the team today.
After the weekend.
Can you argue that CJ Stanner should be starting at 8?
Ireland has 4 professional teams, and so therefore we put a lot of store in what you've done for me over the entire time of your career, because we don't have 15 players. We don't have you're good for me this week, I'm going to pick you. We've never done that in rugby. Maybe that's our problem. Maybe
may need to change.
And maybe that's exactly that. It doesn't matter how brilliant you are, that you were once the Lions or you were once the best in your position in the team of the Six Nations or even the world. It's like this week, who's gone well?
Well, that was definitely an issue at that event that took place a few weeks ago that we will not mention. There weren't not enough guys within that squad who were in their best form starting.
For a long time,
If you're to pick the Six Nations starting 15 this afternoon, why would you not have Doris?
I'll tell you why, because if you think back to the game in Chicago, and in the build-up, Schmidt goes to Kearney and says, come on, I need a big one for me today. And he plays unbelievably well. But he hadn't played well for 18 months before that.
But this is not the All Blacks in Chicago we're talking about.
Then he had a run for 2 years where he was exceptional. So genuinely, lads, and I do agree in a certain point that pick a load of new fellas and
form is temporary, class is permanent.
And you do what you can actually do is more harm than good there to your when you need that player to go back to him, that you can kind of you have to have a mixture of it. You have to bring in youth and young players, and I'm all for Larmour starting, Caelan Doris being in the mix, Cian Kelleher being in the mix. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that.
Ronan Kelleher, you mean?
Ronan Kelleher, sorry. But I still think you can't, and I said this after that tournament you're talking about, we're not allowed mention, that you just can't discard guys, because when the going gets tough and you got to try and keep winning the Six Nations as well, and it'd probably be based on who'll be around in 4 years. That might influence some of the decisions that happen.
It's very far away. You're 4 years is very far away.
Good management out of Andy Farrell now would be, he has to reinvigorate things and refresh things up a bit, and you do that by bringing in young players who don't have a bit of baggage on their shoulder, and they bring energy and they will inspire others. So if you bring in someone like Caelan Doris into the squad, and Scott Penny or whoever, whatever young players that might come in, you suddenly, if you're an older established player, you go, well, I've got to up my game here, and you're down then to like ultimatums from coaches where you're saying, look, I need a big one like he did with Rob Kearney, or else. And the or else scenario, sometimes that can change a player's whole career. So to go back to what you said, Dave, I don't think Standers, I don't think he's in that place where he should be dropped, because I think he's actually been very, very consistent.
I'm not saying we need to discard the likes of CJ Stander, and also, as Sarah said, 4 years it's far too far away.
Yeah.
But the team that's picked for the Six Nations should not be with a view on who's available in 4 years' time.
No, it shouldn't.
That is going back to the exact same issue we've had for previous World Cups.
Should be foreign players, and
it's all about the World Cup cycle. The World Cup cycle should really only be 18 months max. Because you're putting too much importance on it. My point for the Six Nations is that we should be picking our best team. What is the 15 that will give us the best chance of winning this game today?
Well, let's pick a backs, right? Scrum half is Cooney.
At the moment, it's Cooney. Yeah, I think he's put himself in pole position. But again, it's down to when the selectors sit down, and particularly Mike Catt, it'll be interesting now what he thinks coming in
as a fresh pair of eyes.
Yeah, and as well around his attacking philosophy. You know what I mean? Does John Cooney give you more zip? At the moment, you would say yes, because he's doing that for Ulster week after week after week. So it depends what he offers and adds.
Ross Byrne at half at this stage?
Who I don't see an alternative to
unless Carberry plays at the weekend and plays over Christmas in the two interpros and has involvement, and then plays the 2 European games. I think he needs to play in the next week, and he needs to get 3 or 4 games under his belt, or 3 or 4 involvements. They don't need to be full games, because there's talk that he was close to being possibly available this week now. So if that's the case, but if not, I don't think you should pick Joey Carberry if he just plays the latter stages and has involvements late on, because
that's the whole point, isn't it? You're giving Ross Byrne belief and everybody else belief, going, if you're the person who's in form and playing well and have got your place on merit, then we're going to pick you, right?
Yes,
as opposed to we have our team made and you're making up the numbers in training. Otherwise, that's what that decision would send.
Yeah.
On the halfbacks, Quinny, if for example, if it's a halfback pairing of Byrne and Cooney, who's your goal kicker for the opening round of the Six Nations? Isn't Cooney the best goal kicker in Irish rugby at the moment?
It seems that way, yeah. Yeah, it does, yeah.
And that takes the pressure off Ross Byrne then.
He's kicking.
Go out and play your game, get the back line going, get the likes of Jordan Larmour brought into the play as often as you can. Don't worry about what's happening with the kicking team.
If you're an out half, don't you want to kick though? Because that is your chance to get into a game.
If you're the best goal kicker though.
Yeah, maybe, okay.
Cooney is doing it metronomically week after week when the stakes are at their highest.
The centres are obvious, are they? It's Henshaw and Ringrose.
Who are the alternatives? Ringrose obviously is razor sharp at the moment. He's got 2 hat-tricks this season already. Henshaw's not making any mistakes.
To be fair, Henshaw's come back very, very well after the injury at the World Cup, and without kind of setting the world on fire in the last 2 weeks, he's just putting in a massive amount of tackles, really good carries. So I think he's put himself right back in the mix. But Bundyacki's played well for Connacht as well, so it's either or, I think.
Okay,
and,
so that's fine. You'd be happy.
Chris Farrell had a real good game at the weekend for Munster, so it's still those four, and with probably Aki, Henshaw, and Ringrose.
Okay, and then the wings. We've got Larmer at fullback, do we?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
And the two wings at this point, Andrew Conway has to be in whatever team.
I think he has to be in. I just
should have been in the team.
Yeah, and
now.
You know, going back to Scotland, at that first game at the World Cup, I think Larmer and Conway were just brilliant that day, you know, and probably looking back, they should have continued on and played the big games, but Conway has to start, I think.
Stockdale's been playing well at fullback for the last couple of weeks for Ulster. Does that mean his form is good again and he gets back in, or do you again say, look, Jacob, on the wing, your form for us has not been great, so we're going a different direction? And you've got to buck up. Is that how those conversations should go? Or do you go, look, this guy's going to be a superstar for us for the next 4 years, and we're going to talk him out of whatever difficulty he's having on the wing?
There's issues about defence and timing and coming out of the line and his reading of the defence. His contest in the air is non-existent for me. For a big guy who's very, very tall, he's strong. His attack is, you know, when he gets the ball, he's very, very good in attack, but he's got to fix those other parts of the game. You watch someone like Dave Kearney on Saturday, you know, who wouldn't be as talented as Stockdale. You watch the work rate, the aggressive nature of the way he defends, the counter-rucking, the carries, the physicality. And Jacob Stockdale needs to find that part of his game to be he has an ability to be world-class, so I'm not knocking him and saying he has incredible talent. But you know, box kicks putting up in the air and he's kind of meandering up along. He's got to get up in the air and win that and dominate the air. He's got to be aggressive with his carries when the contact happens. He's got to read. So they're the issues, and he's still a very, very young player.
Yeah.
So it's how Andy Farrell manages that.
How would you do it? Would you drop him and say, you've got to go away and work on that and come back to me, and put somebody else in? Or do you say, I know you're capable of doing this, let's see it?
At the moment, I would probably drop him, because I think Keith Earls probably is your other winger, is he?
Well, Conway we think should be in the team.
Yeah.
So is Keith Earls. There's three guys in the running for this slot, and I think Dave Kearney merits a mention now, because over the last couple of weeks you can see exactly why he became such a favourite of Joe Schmidt. Whenever he was fit, he played for Joe, and he's scoring tries frequently, albeit in a Leinster team that's just carrying all before them. He's got 7 tries in 8 games this season, which can't be sniffed at. His defence is almost error-free when you watch him. He doesn't make the sort of reads that Jacob Stockdale tends to read and hasn't really improved upon. So I think he's in the argument. But yeah, it's one of Stockdale, Earls and Kearney. Can you treat Stockdale differently to the rest of them, in that you're very worried about what damage you might do in the long term?
No.
Stockdale is going to be around. He's lethal.
Are all sports people so fragile that they can't?
No, they're not.
Be dropped?
I was dropped several times, and you
isn't
know,
it kind
was
of liberating?
The making of me at times. I dropped for a quarter-final for a European Cup in 2000, where I played the 6 pool games. I was absolutely devastated, and I probably sulked for a while, because it was the first major disappointment around selection happened. And the following year, I'm on the Irish team.
Yeah.
So I went from that situation. So it does make you, and it does bring you back and make you stronger.
Yeah.
And like,
we need
the
to
reality is, we can't mollycoddle these players either and say, well, just because, and I'm not mollycoddling any of them, saying, well, you can't drop Conor Murray because you're dropping Jacob Stockdale or Peter O'Mahony or Stander or Ian Henderson, people who, you know, Ian Henderson didn't perform in that game, you know, in that tournament as well. So there's a number of players that, you know, I just think with some of the older ones that there's a danger that you could put them out the grass in a sense.
I wouldn't put anybody out the grass. I'd say, look, we're going to need you at some
point. Young players need to go through that a little bit.
Yeah.
If they're playing well, select them every week, but
some of the older players might have a career extension by virtue of being dropped now, as opposed to
you never know.
Oh, let's move on, because there is obviously a big talking point from Munster's defeat to Saracens. Here's Owen Farrell talking about the impact of the mid-game melee. Have a listen to this.
I think obviously Munster's a great side, and they came here. We knew it was going to be a massive game. and it was a tense one in the first half, and I thought they probably got more excited about the game than we did in the first half, as it was slow. I thought they fought for everything and got excited about winning scraps and every little decision that went their way, and I thought they out-infused us a little bit, and it took half time for us to show ourselves probably what we're about a bit more, and thankfully we did that, because it was much more enjoyable in the second half.
Who would have made that point at half time then? Would it have been yourself, or would it have been Mark?
No, it'd have been everyone, yeah.
And what changed then in the second half? Did you just feel that you were just fighting a little bit more for everything?
Yeah, I thought we came out in the second half, and I thought our intent was through the roof from the goal. Really, I thought we were more excited. Thought we did make a few mistakes at the start of the second half, which didn't allow us to build as much pressure. And then obviously there was a bit of a scuffle, and our intensity went through the roof.
Yeah, and then Neil asked who started it. He was like, I don't know. So the newspapers are printing, and a fat P was the allegation was allegedly said to
against Jamie Kearns and Jamie George.
Yeah, and then it was like why it started didn't seem like that big a deal until Mark McCall comes out afterwards and goes something, I can't even remember the exact phrase, but it was like something mean was said.
Something horrible was said.
Is it something horrible? What was the exact phrase? From what I know, something pretty bad was said at Jamie. He was like, oh, Jesus, something very serious must have been said here. And then you're like, was that it? F off, you fat P? Was that?
Yeah.
Look, it's not great, right? The doctors shouldn't be involved.
See, I think if you hear stuff all the time as a player in the field, particularly if you're in a kind of a big game, there's a rivalry and there's a bit of a spark in the game, you'll often get comments, F you and all that kind of stuff, which is just kind of, sometimes you laugh at it and you bank it, and he carries the ball next and you try and kill him, or vice versa. And it's just, you got to be careful. There's always a little bit of sledging out in the field, and guys just shake hands afterwards, and I wouldn't say it's part and parcel of it, but it happens. It's no big deal. Loads of people have said loads of things to me, and vice versa in the field, but I think where I understand a little bit where he's coming from is there's a boxing ring. Imagine it's a ring, and someone on the outside is now interfering with verbal. So it does kind of, in a sense, it probably would infuriate you. You know, if a doctor or someone said something to me in the sideline, I would. But I just thought his reaction was, I was a psycho at times, but like, that was a massive overreaction. Now, Trevor Brennan, someone said about his mum, he goes into the crowd. It's not right, but you can see the logic for the bit of psychosis that came into play. If somebody says something about my mum or family members, you know, you can maybe understand you go that far. And I'm not condoning anything that was said to any player. It was wrong, and very, very wrong. But I just thought he kind of gestured back and said a few things himself and was walking away, and then decided to turn back again. So it obviously kind of was still grating him a bit. But if that's what was said, you effing P.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a big reaction for something like that.
Yeah, it's I don't know. So in the end, there should be no significant repercussions for anybody.
Well, I think EPCR will you know, they're going to investigate it on. You know, they're not going to just kind of not say anything about it here, and I think maybe they're right just to have a look at it and talk to Munster and talk to the doctor. There may be a fine, I don't know. But I just think it's a storm in a teacup, really.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff, Quinny. Thanks for that. Nathan and Phil are going to join us in studio next for a weekend wrap. We're going to look at Mayo, Arsenal City, Michael Conlan, and the changes to Tyson Fury's camp. We're back with Michael Swift and Connacht after these.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station. OTB Sports Radio.
We've got a panel who know a thing or two about being trailblazers. Paul Rouse. Sport was already kind of impeded upon. Sinead Kassan.
There's an innate interest in it anyway.
Dermot Lang. It didn't blow me away with him. Jason Sherlock and Kieran Donaghy with us.
Basketball would have been my main game.
Retro panel for you now.
This is OTB Sports Radio. The Retro Panel. Wednesdays and Thursdays from 4. OTB AM.
Probably no idea really in terms of, like, we had them written off with 10 minutes to go, and that Connacht spirit, they just managed to get back into the game with a try by Shane Delahunt. And then with 3 minutes to go, there's an opportunity to score a try again, but they probably played their best rugby in those last 3 minutes and managed to build phases. And then Bundyaki became more of an attacking threat. It was his initial line break, and then a couple of phases later, Tom Daly had a great offload off the floor to Robin Copeland on the wing, who got over for a famous try and gives Connacht a victory that we really didn't see coming. But because in the course of 80 minutes, it probably wasn't the best of games in terms of skill sets, and a lot of unforced errors by both teams. But in the end, it all comes down to those last 3 minutes, and Connacht got over the line on 2 occasions and have managed to keep their Champions Cup dreams alive. Obviously, they're delighted to get the win today, but as we said, their second half performances in recent weeks have kind of probably been at the highest standards that he would expect, and it seems to be a replication of that. But look, if Connacht can hold on to the ball, they're a really dangerous team. A bit more invention maybe in attack, and a couple of times they got turned over in the red zone, so their probably conversion rates aren't probably where they should be at this level. But he won't care about that now. Connacht have managed to get the win. They probably would have hoped for 5 points, but they got 4. It still keeps their dream alive as they go into a busy Inter-Pro series now with Munster coming to the sports ground next Saturday.
You're very welcome along to the weekend wrap on OTB AM. Nathan and Phil have joined us from various parts of around the world. Well, certainly you were jet setting.
Galway, London, never ends.
There you go. Phil, you were at least on your couch watching Michael Conlon.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I had to watch it yesterday morning.
Well, that's it.
I was out on Saturday.
Perfectly legitimate.
Yeah, I watched the rerun at 10 a.m.
Was it one-sided? Was it straightforward?
One judge gave it to him by 10, the other by 9-1 and by 8-2. So I would have given 2 rounds to Nick Heaton, especially the fifth. He fought mainly in southpaw style, Conlon, and when he went into orthodox, he actually got caught with a few right hands, so he kind of got out of that.
Doing this? What's the point of it?
I mean, actually, Terence Crawford was the main event. He's one of the best switch hitters around. It's something Conlon did when he was an amateur, and I mean, I know we'll talk about Andy Lee in a bit. Like, Andy fought as a southpaw, but he's right-handed, so it's no harm in being able to switch. But he certainly looked better against Nick Heaton as a southpaw. So he can tailor this for whoever he's fighting.
The footage, the video of Andy's world title victory against Karabov was doing the rounds on YouTube, because I think it was the 8th anniversary. Was that what it was? Yeah,
it was 2014. So
fifth anniversary. Yeah. Stunning finish to that fight. You should all dig it out. The other big news from the weekend is the Mayo County Board have a new county board chairman, and maybe peace will break out between millionaire benefactor and Mayo County Board.
You'd expect so. So Lee Moffat is in. This is obviously dragged on for several months. It should be pointed out that this convention was always going to happen, that Mike Kennelly's term as county board chairman was always coming to an end. But it was sort of seen that there was the old guard and there was the new guard, and Lee Moffat was very much the new guard, and that...
Is he connected to Tim O'Leary in any way?
Not really, though. I think Tim O'Leary was very much a supporter of Lee Moffat and felt that if Moffat comes in, that Moffat would be the easiest one to act as peacemaker, that there was no sort of legacy issues from the previous board. Now, Lee Moffat obviously has to go and do that. There's a lot of money on the table for Mayo over the next few years, which, having looked at what Dublin released on Thursday night in terms of, was it a 50% increase in commercial revenue in the space of a year? 1.6 million to 2.3 million. That any extra money Mayo can get is necessary. Moffat's, talk about grounded in Mayo football. He won a Club All-Ireland with Crossmolina. He has been Mayo team physio. He has been the head of coaching in the county.
Right, that sounds great.
So he's been very much involved in all sorts of levels. He's been part of the backroom staff with the senior county side. He's a physio, has a physio practice in Mayo.
Right.
So smart guy who I think knows top to bottom what Mayo football is about.
So I don't know what the vote was, close in the end, but certainly O'Leary over the weekend had one last kind of, I'm reluctant to make this public, but I'm taking my legal action further. Then the election happens and it looks like the threat of the legal action has abated somewhat.
That certainly seems to be the case from the outside. I would expect that they still want to see some proof of where the money went. But there's 250 grand sitting in a bank account belonging to the Mayo Foundation after the fundraiser in New York. that once they're given the proper plans and procedures of what's going to happen with it, is going to be released.
So he issued a statement in the aftermath on his Twitter account yesterday saying, today was a good day for Mayo GAA, but the hard work begins now, thank you. So it's a long statement, we won't read out the full thing, you can check it out on Twitter as well. At Newport Mayo 1951 is the...
ticks all the boxes, that handle.
Yeah. So are you happy as a Mayo GAA supporter that this has been put to bed and we can start talking about the football on the field? the long continuing hunt for...
This has been the greatest distraction of all time. Everyone will be happy, I think, presuming that's it done, and actually all these potential funds, and Tim O'Leary has been talking about tapping into that diaspora and the foundation and potentially raising up on, £1 million a year through that. If that comes and the senior team get everything they need, brilliant. Because that's what Mayo do need, because they're going to fall behind very quickly. But they also need a academy,
more coaches.
They need more coaches. They need all of that. So I don't think it's going to be a quick fix, but presumably this means at least it dies down for the next few months.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that because, it is the never-ending story. Let's talk a little bit about Tyson Fury, who announced the weekend that he's got a new coach.
Yeah, this is a big surprise given that 2 months out from the rematch with Deontay Wilder, and Ben Davison, who was his trainer, announced it on social media yesterday that they've parted company, still friends, but just gone their separate ways. And then last night, Tyson Fury
changes a lot, doesn't he?
He does, but obviously Peter Fury, his uncle, was the trainer when he beat Klitschko.
Right.
And brilliant trainer. And then that relationship broke down. Obviously, Tyson Fury had his struggles outside the ring. Ben Davison and personal training would be something that Ben Davison is quite strong on, and he helped him kind of lose nearly 10 stone. And I think with Tyson Fury, you can tell from watching him, and he said it himself, that he knows everything about boxing. He doesn't need that much coaching, is what he said. But when he fought Wilder the first time, Freddie Roach was part of the team, and he was critical of Ben Davison that night because he thought that they were just...
He's part of the commentary team?
No, he was in the corner. Ricky Hatton, Ben Davison and Freddie Roach.
We're in Tyson Fury's corner. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And Freddie Roach is critical of the other...
He was on a US talk show or a TV show a few days later, and he just said, I thought Fury could have finished Wilder if he had gone for it a bit more.
Right.
But
that's as calling somebody out as
and that's why part of me was wondering when Ben Davison announced that he was no longer training. I was like, I wonder is this being Freddie Roach is going to get it? But no, he's gone for Javon Sugar Hill, a name that if off the ball listeners will know because Andy Lee has talked about this man. He is the nephew of the late Emmanuel Stewart, and Tyson Fury posted this picture there. That's 2010. This is before he was a heavyweight champion.
Some people are listening on OTB Sports Radio this morning. Phil, tell us what we've got.
So you've got Javon Hill on the left. You've got Tyson Fury with a full head of hair. You've got Emmanuel Stewart, and you've got Andy Lee. The four lads there in the Kronk Gym in Detroit. This is before Tyson Fury was really burst onto the scene.
And read the caption.
And he says,
getting the old team back up and running.
Yeah, so this is what he posted. So
at Kronk Sugar Hill and at Body Puncher, hashtag Kronk Boys back in town. At Body Puncher is Andy Lee. Are we putting two and two together here and getting Andy Lee as part of the backroom team of Tyson Fury for the period where Tyson Fury becomes the dominant heavyweight in the world?
This is quite a kind of stable that Andy Lee is building, if that's the case, where, he gets Paddy Donovan, the upcoming prospect. Then he gets Jason Quigley, who, a lot of people feel could be a world champion, suffers a defeat. Andy's thinking, I've been there. And we had Jason Quigley in off the brawl last week, and he is excited for 2020. And he just said, even when you walk into a room now with Andy, the respect that everyone in boxing has for Andy, not just because he's one of the nicest guys ever, but because of what he did as a fighter. But to learn under Emmanuel Stewart, like when you're talking to Andy, you could talk to him for hours about boxing.
Yeah, you feel smarter coming away from it.
Yeah,
like when we're the nicest guy in the world when he's in the corner. Every photograph I see of him alongside Jason Quigley,
he looks pretty mean, doesn't he?
Like he's about to kill someone.
He does, doesn't he?
I get nervous looking at him.
He's got that.
He's angry.
He's got that. The walk to the ring transforms him into the
even
killer
like
again.
he said to Jason, he said, look, we need to basically give you the killer instinct. So he changed the colour of his shorts. And if you looked at Jason Quigley's fight a couple of weeks ago, the way he finished the fight, it was like there was a bit of nastiness.
There was. He was chasing him around the ring in stages.
Yeah,
like he's gone for the kill here.
So
Phil, good stuff. Thanks for that. That's a nice little bit of detective work for you this morning. Briefly before you go, Nathan, Arsenal 0, Man City 3. That was the game you did.
Yeah, it was so easy for Manchester City. I was listening to you earlier. I think Dave was dead right. Kevin De Bruyne will never have an easier game. Kenny touched on, he did play in a slightly different position.
Yeah, I think this is important though. Like,
could be a big change, actually.
But isn't it important? It doesn't matter who the opposition is. If you're a world-class player like De Bruyne is, you just need to get your mojo back. You need to get your confidence back. You need to feel like you are the man on a team, because he hasn't been the man on that team the way he should have been for the last 18 months. The injuries happened. The form was good for a while. The form disappeared. He was getting called out by John Giles on Thursday Night Football at the start of the season. He just hadn't done his business for a while. And now I think that he could start doing his business again, and suddenly you've got him, you've got Sterling, and then whoever else is actually playing isn't irrelevant because they're all great. But that's a team who you would really believe has a very strong chance of winning the Champions League.
Well, if De Bruyne goes on and is the best player in the Premier League and the best player in English football for the next 6 months, absolutely Manchester City will have a brilliant chance. I just wonder what their motivation levels are going to be like and whether they can get up for week in, week out when they're 14, 17 points behind Liverpool.
Is Pep putting those stories out that you see in The Athletic about this being potentially the end of it, to see what there's a response from the players? Is there some level of motivation? Is there some level of trickery going on there?
There could be.
There could be, but I do fear, like, Arsenal were a joke yesterday. And difficult criticising Guendouzi and Torreira because they're still quite young, particularly Guendouzi, but some of the play was so naive. That third goal, stepping out in front of De Bruyne like that, like, it's amateurish stuff. And who's coaching them defensively? Who's trying to improve these players? And that's the one. It's funny, you probably feel this. 5-6 years ago when we go to the Emirates, you'd always look forward to going there, even though Arsenal weren't at their peak, but they always played really good football. Ozil would run the show quite often. It'd always be really entertaining. It's one of the bottom of the list now in terms of grounds you'd want to go to because the atmosphere is crap. Arsenal have nothing. Like, they're a nothing side right now. There's no style, there's no substance, there's literally nothing to them.
So don't read anything into this.
Absolutely nothing.
I don't read anything into the fact that Kevin De Bruyne has shown us what a wonderful footballer he is.
Well, because he hadn't shown us that on us over a sustained period of time for a while.
This class is a permanent thing. The biggest problem for City is that every team looks like, apart from Arsenal, looks like they can score against them. And throw Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, Real, Barca, Liverpool, all these clubs that they're potentially going to have to take on over the next few months in the Champions League, they know that they can get after Manchester City. They may concede against them, but City's biggest issue is the fact that they started yesterday with Fernandinho at centre-half alongside Otamendi.
Fernandinho was brilliant, by the way. Yes, that was the only thing.
Against Arsenal.
It was like Franz Beckenbauer against Arsenal. Arsenal could have scored in the first 20 seconds is the other thing. Again, by just
totally
running
different games,
straight at that.
They only got that goal.
Running straight through that Manchester City defence.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, good stuff, lads. Thanks for that. Good to have you back, Dave.
Yeah.
Nathan, always nice to see you in the morning.
Your last show, you and I are doing the last show before Christmas.
I mean, yeah, one of our last shows before Christmas.
I presume that'll be Tuesday morning.
Christmas Eve, exactly, yes, Dave.
So Christmas Day. We're all coming in Christmas Day.
Right, all this week on OTB Moment, thanks to Best Menswear. We've got prizes and gift guides each morning to help you in the build-up to Christmas. We're joined by Chef Gary O'Halloran a little bit earlier on for our gift guide for the foodie in your life. It was great stuff. This morning we're going to give you the chance to win a €100 gift voucher courtesy of Best Menswear. Congratulations to Mark Waters. Cooney is the best player on the planet at the minute, he says. See what he did? He got the pun in. Tommy's obviously very tired after a weekend on the sesh. He was like, yeah. Anyway, Cooney is the best player on the planet at the minute. We're back at the same time tomorrow morning with another Best Menswear gift guide. That is all for your Monday morning, live on air and online tonight from 7 o'clock on Monday Night Rugby, the football show, and much more besides. You can subscribe to the OTB AM podcast, fully timestamped, making it easy to find exactly what you want from every morning's 2-hour show. You can scroll through it. Did you know that?
I'd prefer to stroll through it.
You can if you want. OTB AM, Ireland's first and only sports breakfast show. We'll be back tomorrow, and best of luck. Good luck.
OTB.
The most memorable Irish sporting moment of the decade.